The story begins late at night when two young people were walking through a pitch-black forest. The girl was carrying a bundle of cloth in which was a small dark-haired child. After a while, they sat down to rest. The young man asked the girl if she was going to abandon the child. He doesn't know how many times he has to be told that he is cursed and they can't leave him. The girl replied that it was just a coincidence that his eyes and hair were black. The boy replied that the black color was proof that he was cursed. If they raise this child, then who knows what might happen to their village. The boy apologizes to the girl for yelling. The man tells her to look. He loves this child too, even though it is difficult, but they cannot know what will happen to their village then. The girl agrees and says that this is the king's order. She hugged the boy and said she was very sorry. The boy did not suspect anything and slept soundly in his blanket. The magical misty forest has a high concentration of magic due to the thick fog. Due to the poor visibility and the monsters that live here, this forest is considered very dangerous. Only a few dare to come here, except for illegal traders and adventurers hunting for monsters and their things. So one adventurer girl called a man named Karma and said that they had reached the extreme point. No one had ever gone further, they would continue on. The man turned to Sane and Tisses and asked how much magic and supplies they had left. Sane replied that they had about 60% of their mana left and a couple of healing targets. Tisses replied that she had 70% left. If they split it evenly, they would have enough supplies for about 3 more weeks. The man agrees and invites the girls to continue their search, since there is very little time left. However, he asked the girls not to let their guard down. They didn't know much about this place. If they saw anything suspicious, they should immediately inform him. The girls agreed. Suddenly, a small monster came out. Karma said that this monster was not dangerous. Suddenly, they saw a very strange fruit. Karma added that adventurers who returned from this forest most often brought this fruit with them. Suddenly, the monster got angry and started attacking the group of adventurers. Karma took a fighting stance and started protecting his group. He ordered Tumor to cover from behind. The girl agreed and said that it would only be loud. Sane got furious and said that she would destroy the monster. Tisses told Sane to keep an eye on the fruit. It would all be for nothing if they lost it. The girl shouted at Karma to attack the marked spot and she and Sane would help them. The girls started attacking this monster. They used their skills, Fast Arrow and Air Blast. Soon all the attacks flew straight at the monster. Karma looked at the monster and wondered if they had really defeated it. The girl examined the monster and said that it showed no signs of life, which meant that they had won. Sane grabbed the fruit and said that it was whole. After a while, they already had 3 fruits. Tisses said that she could not even imagine how much money they could get. Sane added that each of them was worth 20% of the country's budget. Tisses agreed and added that this was until they encountered more dangerous monsters. Suddenly, Tumor asked everyone to be quiet. Suddenly, a voice was heard saying that they had good intuition. A young man came out and said that they also had excellent reaction, and it seemed that Margaret was not here. Everyone saw a young man standing on a tree branch. They did not understand who he was. Seeing his dark eyes and black hair, they realized that he was cursed. Tisses said he had black hair and eyes. However, the damned don't live long after birth and maybe he just got painted or something. Sane said it was impossible for him to come to the forest dressed like that because it wasn't normal. The young man looked at the little monster and asked the boys if they had really killed him. He also said that they couldn't do it without good skills and magic. It seems that they are skilled adventurers. The youth asked if he was right. Karma agreed and said that they are rank adventurers. They are here to take the precious fruit. The young man said that this was his territory and the boys were vandals. He ordered them to leave the fruit and get out of here, and then he would spare their lives. Tumor shouted at the boy and told him not to tell them what to do. They had fought fairly to take the fruit for themselves. They also said that there were 4 of them and he was the only one, so he would beg for mercy himself. Karma agreed and asked why they should listen to him. The young man asked if they really meant to say that these fruits were more valuable than their entire lives. Tumor shouted to Karma and Tisses and said that he was most likely a common bandit, so they should kill him quickly. Sane added that they warned him that it would be better not to mess with them. Karma said that he felt sorry for killing them, so he offered to teach him a lesson and take him to the guild. The young man said that these adventurers had chosen death. He closed his eyes and began to recite the spells associated with the Crimson Soul. Suddenly, a current of air surrounded the young man's body. He was asking someone to lend him their powers. Karma realized that it was a summons. He ordered the girls to attack the boy while he was casting a spell. Tumor and Sane prepared to attack, charging a magic arrow and a normal arrow. The arrow flew straight towards the young man and pierced his body. Sane asked if Tumor had missed. The girl gave a negative answer. She also added that the young man did not dodge. This attack passed right through him. The next moment, the young man called Pudvent Blaze Furnier. The next moment, a girl appeared behind the young man, emitting a dark aura. Tumor was very surprised that a winged spirit appeared. Sane yelled at everyone to hide and then used a spell of Deadly Inferno. She yelled that she didn't know if it would work on the spirit, but wondered what about the boy. Suddenly, a huge pillar of flame engulfs the boy's body. Sane smiles and says that he wasn't that strong after all. He's just a piece of roasted meat now. Tissy says that Sane said she wouldn't kill him. Tumor said that he managed to dodge her attacks, so Sane did everything right. Karma said that they should start to slowly retreat now. Suddenly, a gust of air rushed through. The adventurers were very surprised. Suddenly, a young man with a spirit appeared and said that all the trees were burnt. She asked the young man if they would hold back any longer. Karma was very surprised that this was a speaking spirit who could neutralize the flames. This meant that he was a high-level spirit. The young man asked the man what of it. The spirit said that adventurers tried to destroy their home and killed their family members. She asks if they think they will leave alive. Karma shouted that they couldn't defeat them, so he asked Tissies to use the teleportation stone. They had to leave here. Karma thought that it was good that he bought this stone before going to this forest. This spirit is not in their power category. They need to inform the man about this as soon as possible. Tissies said that she understood and asked everyone to come to her. Suddenly, the voice of a young man was heard, who said that he would not let them in. The next moment, the young man pierced the girl's chest and took the teleportation stone. Sane, Karma, and Tumor were shocked. The young man said that it was as he thought. The people who come here will surely take the teleport stone with them. Suddenly, right behind a shocked Sane, he told the girl that she loved playing with fire, and then asked if she wanted to know what it was like to be burned alive. Then a spirit appeared behind her. The young man said that he would scrape her soul into a path of suffering for what he had done. He ordered the girl to burn to ashes. The spirit grabbed the girl by the head and she screamed hysterically. Tumor ordered the young man to stop. The next moment, Sane was engulfed in flames, and after a while the flames dissipated and the spirit was holding something that looked like a person in her hands. The spirit girl said that Sane would no longer be able to resist. Sane fell to the ground and turned to Karma, asking him to help her. After a while, she took her last shower. Tumor, seeing all this, screamed hysterically and rushed straight to the young man. He appeared right next to her and told Tumor not to scream so hopelessly. They pretended to be heroes and now they are not even ready to die. Tumor began waving the knife and ordered the boy to get away from it. Suddenly the blade was almost next to the boy's eye. The next moment he grabbed Tumor. She screamed for the young man to let her go, but he easily broke her arm. Then the young man easily lifted the girl by the neck and blocked her access to air. The next moment her body went limp. The girl breathed her last and dropped her hands. Karma was kneeling and watching everything that was happening. The young man approached the man and he asked why he killed them all, even when they all lost their fighting spirit. The young man then told the man to answer why they killed a tree that did not try to harm them. The spirit added that they were hunting for this fruit. They did not care whether the tree was alive or dead. The man shouted that it was not so bad to kill monsters. The young man said that he would agree that the strongest defeat the weakest. The man asked why they did that then. The young man replied that anyone who harmed his family would not leave here alive. If they took the fruits with them, more adventurers would come here. They consider adventurers a threat because they do everything to take what they are looking for. He offered them to leave peacefully, but they did not listen and attacked them. The spirit said that they couldn't just sit and watch their home being destroyed, and then told the man that he would soon return to his friends. The spirit tells the man not to resist, and she will do everything painlessly. After some time, the spirit addressed a young man named Wilm. She said that she had burned all their bodies. The young man thanked his sister Hinori for her help. Then he told her that she could go home without him. The girl smiled and refused. The young man asked why she refused, to which the girl replied that she had not been alone with the young man for a long time. She beamed and asked the young man to go home together as if they were on a date. The young man smiled and agreed. He put out his hand and asked the lady to let him walk home. The girl said she couldn't believe Will had said that. She also said that everyone was already tired of waiting for them. In their memories, there were beautiful maidens standing at beautiful gates. Several years ago, a beautiful girl was sleeping in a high castle. Suddenly, someone entered her room and tried to wake her up, calling her Lady Sadia. The girl got out of bed. The other girl apologized for interrupting her rest. The article said everything was fine and then asked what happened. The girl replied that the spirit that was awake had found a human child. The article was very surprised. The girl agreed and said that they saw two people at the gate leading to the forest. Anyone who found him could do whatever they wanted with him, but to kill such an innocent child was too much. So the spirits said they would bring the child here and let Milady decide for herself. Milady article asked if that was really so. In that case, they were going. After a while, a cry of delight was heard. The girl said that this child was smiling. His fingers were so tiny and he was so cute. Each one wanted to hug him. The girl started yelling at them because she had told them to sit quietly until Milady arrived. The spirit holding the baby said he couldn't do anything about it because the baby was so cute. The spirit asked Jenny if she wanted to hug him. Eventually, Jenny was handed the baby. He began to smile. The girl, shaking, said that he was very nice. Jenny came to her senses and asked her lady's forgiveness for all this mess. However, she was very surprised when she saw my lady's face and asked what was wrong with the girl. Sadia said that this is an angel and he is definitely an angelic child. Jenny said that although this child is cute, he is still a human. The girl asked what kind of nonsense Jenny was talking. She said that there was no way in the world this child could be human. The girl said that he was just an angel disguised as a human. Jenny asked if my lady Sadia was in her right mind. Sadia said that it was decided and that meant that they would take care of this baby. Jenny was very surprised. She asked Milady to reconsider her decision. Besides, no one would want to take care of him. Milady looked at the other girls. They said that after all, they were the ones who found this child, and also the girl with the big form would be useful to him. It was obvious that they were the best choice for guardianship. Suddenly, Milady raised her hand and agreed. Na said that she would be the one to take care of this baby. The girls said that since she was the empress, she could not saddle it because she had enough work to do. The next moment, Jenny slammed the table and ordered everyone to stop. If each of them wanted to take care of him so badly, why didn't they all do it? This child's life wasn't something to play with. If they want it so much, they should approach it with all seriousness. Everyone agreed they could take care of him together. Being raised by many people, he could become a well-rounded, developed person. They decided to teach him many skills, for example, magic, survival lessons, and martial arts. To prevent him from becoming an aggressive person, they need to balance his knowledge and skills. For example, teach him arithmetic and the art of war. Since he will live with different races, they should not forget to teach him tolerance. Empress Sadia watched the child with affection. Several years later, the young man was returning home after killing a group of adventurers. The spirit girls were happy that William and Hinori had returned. The spirit along with William greeted the spirits. The girl said that they were on a date and she was so jealous of them. They also told Hinori that it was a scam. Hinori smiled and said that it was because he called her first. The girl allowed him to put his hand on her curves, and he seemed to enjoy it. In fact, she put his hand to hers. The boy sighed and smiled. Then Will told his sister Hinori that he would go report the information to his mother and then they would see each other. The girl agreed. She also said that she would tell the whole village about her brave act and their date. The young man asked her not to exaggerate. Then the young man began to approach the castle. Suddenly, small spirits appeared and greeted the young man. They began to ask him what game they would play today. Will said that he had to talk to his mother first. The little spirits said that the boy had made his wish and that he would not back out anymore. The boy said that he promised that after the talk they would play. Will waved his hand and then set off. After a while, he opened a huge door and entered a room where Empress Sadia was sitting, with servants standing next to her. Empress Sadia turned to Will Servantal and ordered him to report on the mission. The youth said that he had eliminated the intruders. After a while, the girl got up from her throne and then rushed with tears in her eyes straight to Will. The girl plopped right on Will, and he couldn't stand it and fell to the floor with the girl. Sadia stood up and asked the boy if he was really okay. She also started asking the boy if he was hurt and if he really didn't have any pain. The girl told the boy to be sure to let her know if he felt unwell. Will said that he was fine and also that he had destroyed all traces around the village. Sadia replied that she was glad the boy had returned unharmed. If he had returned wounded, she would have gone mad. Besides, the spirits were supposed to handle it. That way, Will would be safe and she wouldn't have to worry. Jill stopped Milady Sadia and said that she knew they were worried about Mr. Will, but since she was on the throne, she had to control herself. The other girl agreed. The Empress was also asked to calm down, as Mr. Will had only told half of his report. The girl sat down on her throne and said that if she both said so, then she would thank Will for his good work. Sadia said that if they found their village, they would attack them immediately. People were cruel and there were many of them. It was easy to imagine what trouble they would bring to her children. Will was able to prevent this disaster, so he can be proud of himself. Will said that he did not deserve such an honor. Sadia said that she would ask the young man about this in more detail another time, but for now he should rest. The young man thanked the girl and then said that this was the end of his report to the Empress. He then tells the Empress, addressing her as his mother, that he is home. The girl immediately became happy and welcomed Will home. Will then turned to Jenny and Minnie and said that he had also returned home. The girls welcomed Mr. Will home. Will thought about his family, friends, and village. He realized that he would not allow anyone to lay a finger on them. At that time, a fire was burning in the forest. People were sitting next to the fire and the cart. One man said that luck was on his side. Who would have thought that he would be able to catch an elf? The other men said that they worked very hard for this. They are looking forward to the reward. The man replied that this time they had hit the jackpot, so he would pay them back properly. The men told the sir that he was very generous. Of course, that was if they got out of this forest alive. The man shouldn't worry because they would just use their usual route. The man said it was a mistake to take someone with him. He kicked the girl who was sitting next to him. She apologized and said she was really sorry. The elf girl shouted at the man that he said that if she did not resist, the man would not hit her again. The man said that he did not hit her but only kicked her because the girl was very expensive. And unlike the elf, this girl is just a failed commodity. No one will care even if she dies. The other men said that a draft woman her age should at least have human-sized curves. The elf girl got very angry. The man smiled and asked the girl if she was sure about it. He could just give this girl to a brothel. The elf girl said she was sorry and had no choice. They sat down with each other while the men had fun. Suddenly, the girl draft heard something in the bushes. She looked and saw a snake crawling out of the bushes. Sometime later, near the castle in the thicket of the forest, a rumble and a crack were heard, as well as an explosion. Will dexterously moved from tree to tree. Hinari appeared next to him. Will jumped from one branch to another. The next moment, Hinari used her fire magic to attack Will. Suddenly, Will smiled and made a dash straight towards Hinari. He ended up right behind the girl and grabbed her. She tried to break free, but she couldn't. The girl said that she had lost again. They couldn't believe that the boy had jumped over her fiery plumage. Will said that she was constantly keeping distance between herself and her opponent. He thought that if he managed to get close, she would panic and use her spell. The girl replied that she knew about it, but she was surprised that the young man decided to take a risk. She had been losing a lot to him lately. She felt that she could not really help him, even though she was his sister. Will stroked the girl's head. He said that no matter what, she was still his sister. Besides, how could he protect her if he was still weak? He also says that the girl has always protected him. Now it is his turn to repay her in the same coin. Then he began to stroke her. Suddenly, the girl's voice was heard, who said that the boy and the girl were like lovebirds. The young man greeted his dear sister. She also spoke about her words and asked if it was not she who taught him to express his feelings through words. The girl said that the young man was right. Looking at him with Hinori, she immediately becomes jealous, so the girl apologizes to him. Hinori asked her sister how long she has been here. The girl apologized for interrupting her date with Hinori, but she was going to borrow Will for a minute. The boy said that everything was fine and then asked what had happened. The girl agreed and asked the boy if he knew the mercenaries who usually invaded the forest. They usually just ignore them because they pose no threat, but in this case they captured an elf who had made a contract with a spirit. Will said he understood. He said that if the spirit knew where their village was, then the elf himself probably knew. He thought that would be a serious problem. The girl added that it seemed they were resting on the edge of the forest. They didn't know when they would invade the forest. They have one chance to destroy them here and now, so the boy must be ready. He must also make sure to summon her once he gets there. She asks him to summon her again. The boy asks why they don't just go there together. The girl said that everything was obvious. She would not receive the warmth of the young man unless he called her. Hinori said that her sister was right and their strength was determined by how much love he gave. The boy asks if they go there together, won't it be like a round-trip date? The girls are very surprised. Hinori said that such a thought had never occurred to her. Maybe it wasn't such a bad idea, but she still wanted her body to be filled with the boy's magic. Sister told Will he was a genius. He came up with this idea in a flash, incredible of him. The boy asked the girls to stop. He was going there and would see what they were doing. He would call his sister later while she could rest. The girl agreed. The boy asked Hinori to lend it to her mother. Hinori approached her sister and asked her to take care of Will. Her sister agreed and said that she would not let them leave a scratch on Will. Then the young man becomes serious and sets off on his journey. The sun began to set and a cart with traders passed through the forest. Will watched the wagon carefully from his tree. He thought about the 12 mercenaries and 2 hostages. Also, it seemed, the one who was leading this group. He looks at the man and thinks that it is him. There are quite a few of them. If even one of them escapes, it will be a problem. If he attacks right here, the people living near the forest may suspect something. Besides, the spirit the elf had made a contract with was probably still in shock and unable to use its magic. In this state, the spirit would recognize the village. The best solution would be to lure them deeper into the forest. The young man exhaled. He thought that after all, they were mercenaries. There was no doubt that they were only doing this for the money. If it failed, he would have to kill them all. She knows it's for his village, but he doesn't like killing people. After a while, the carriage suddenly stops. The hostage girls hear the men announce preparations for battle. Suddenly Will appeared in front of the carriage. He raised his hands and said that he is not their enemy. The man looks at the dark-haired boy and calls him a cursed child. The men said that there couldn't be a cursed child in that forest. There was also a boy who dyed his hair to scare people. They remember the moment when the men taught him a lesson and they had a lot of fun. The men pointed their guns at Will. The leader said he didn't care who he was and didn't care if he was a cursed child or not. He asked the boy what he wanted. He saw them crossing this misty forest. Since he saw them, does he really think they would just turn a blind eye and let her go? He also says that they will not let him go. The young man says that he has a proposition for them that is related to their work. The man asks if it is true even if it costs everything he has in his pocket. The man then called Dios, Foxy, and Mervyn to surround the boy, and if he moved, they should finish him off. The man says that he is listening to the young man. If he asks something stupid, he will die immediately, and if he does not like the young man's proposal, he will also say goodbye to his life. The young man said he understood and then took out a bag containing shining gems. The young man suggests that they all get it over with and check his bag. The man orders the others to watch him and orders a man named Egil to check what's inside the bag. The man said there was nothing suspicious. There were jewelry and gold. The man looked at the jewelry and thought it was worth the same as the elf. The man asked the boy what his offer was and he would think about it. The man ordered them to put away their spears. Will thanked the man and introduced himself. He said he was an adventurer and a summoner. He asked the man if he could learn his name. The man says his name is Reed and he is a dealer in illegal goods. He also has mercenaries around him that he pays to be his bodyguards. Will asked permission to call the man Mr. Reed. Then he said about his offer and asked if Mr. Reed was interested in spirits. The man agreed. Then William said that the spirits used by the summoner, he says that this is the type of spirit they are interested in. Will said that this time he came to the forest because he managed to get some information. According to it, high-ranking spirits live here. The man was very surprised. Will said that he saw that Mr. Reed was interested. He wants to make a contract with as many high-ranking spirits as possible. However, the monsters that live in the area constantly hinder him. He will be too vulnerable while he signs the contract, so his request will be to protect him during this process. As a bonus, after he signs the contract, what happens to this village is up to them. The man says that all these treasures are therefore the reward for this offer. It seems that Mr. Will do everything possible to conclude the contract, but he does not understand something. Why shouldn't his fellow summoners accompany him? It would be much cheaper. Will agreed and said that at least he thought so. He asks the man if he has heard of an A-rank team called Ishinaki. Maken, rumor has it that they still haven't returned from that forest. People are starting to fear that forest, even adventurers. They all rejected his request. He had no choice but to enter this forest alone, but it seemed that he could not make a contract safely, so he decided to go back and accidentally met them on the way. This is the forest that is said to have taken out an entire A-rank team, and they are alone here. The man was very surprised. Will said that of course they would be careful. This forest was dangerous after all, just so they knew he had a reliable partner. He could handle 2 or 3 monsters on his own. If they wanted, he could prove it. The man asked Will to prove it to him. The young man agreed and began to summon the spirit. He says that the spirit who has a yellow soul, he calls him and asks him to cling to his soul and return the evil back to earth. He orders the maiden of the yellow snake to come and calls Zemium Garcinia. Suddenly, a girl appears right in front of him. The man is surprised and asks if this is really a spirit. Will says that this is his partner and she is the spirit of the earth and her name is Radia. Seeing the reaction of the men, the young man grinned. Suddenly a spell was heard that pushed all the men away. The man got angry and asked how this elf girl managed to escape. The water bundle headed straight for Will and Radia. The young man realized that this was spirit magic. He doesn't understand what this power is, and it seems like she has a good relationship with her spirit. The elf yelled at Will, how dare he tell these people about the village. She asks the boy if he doesn't know what will happen if the village's existence is revealed. Will thought that if the girl would only stay calm, everything would end smoothly. Will said he didn't care because he was already signing a contract. The only thing he had to consider was whether it was to his advantage or not, and that was it. The girl is surprised. The boy says that there is no point in talking to her about it. The man turns to Mr. Will and asks him to seize the girl without causing harm. She is his precious commodity. The man says that he promises a reward for this. Will also says that he needs his reward. However, he is right. The request requires a reward, so the reward will accompany him until he succeeds in making the contract. The man asks if Will is really sure about this. He is glad that they have come to an agreement. Will said he was counting on the man to promise. The elf sent the boy and then asked the spirit to lend him her power. Will turns to Radia and the girl says she understands. The next moment, she used the ground prison and the elf girl was imprisoned in the ground prison. The girl didn't understand how Radia could cast the spell so quickly. Will turned to Radia and said that they couldn't take her if she used the cage. He suggested that they just tie the girl's hands and feet. Radia agreed and said that the young man was right. She uses an earthen binder and ties the elf girl's hands. Then she lifts her onto her shoulder. The elf calls Radia mistress and asks her not to listen to the boy. Then Radia shuts the girls up. The next moment the man thanked the boy for saving them. He was surprised that she managed to break the handcuffs. Will said that isn't the elf a spirit owner. Her spirit is strong enough to break the handcuffs, but Radia is stronger than her. She won't go anywhere this time. As the man promised, he must try hard to accompany him. The man agreed and said that he agreed with him that the only thing to consider was profit. The man also said that they had just met, but he already thought that they would be good business partners. Will said that they would talk about it later. Then the man realized that Will was interested. He called the mercenaries and said that from now on they should address their savior, Mr. Will, politely. After they signed the contract, they would be their comrades. The mercenaries said they were looking forward to working with Will. Now that Mr. Will and his spirit were with them, no one could stop them. Another man told Ms. Radia that she was great. Then the man finally approached the elf girl. He closed the curtain, menacingly asked if she really wanted to run away. He also tells her to be prepared because she will pay for this. After this trip is over, he will let everyone decide how to punish her. If he is angry, he should be angry at himself for doing such a stupid thing. The girl was very frightened by the man's words. After a while, the men were very happy and all rode together in the wagon. Will sat next to Reed. Reed looked around and realized that there were no signs of monsters here. He assumed that it was all because of this spirit beast. Then Will says that this open place is just right. They all get out of the carriage. Reed thought that after he signed the contract, he had no doubt that he would become rich thanks to Will's power. Will says he's starting the contract ritual. He asks everyone here to be on guard. Will looks around and then calls out to Radia. The girl arrives and then Will orders her to kill all the people. The next moment, a huge snake appears from the ground. She encircles everyone and begins to devour them. Radia said that the snake could go back to sleep after it was done with this. The snake continued to hiss. Reed stood there in shock and watched what was happening. 5. He asked what the hell that was and whether Will must have done something wrong. Reed remembers Will's words. Falling to the ground, he realizes that this can't be and that Will really planned to kill them from the very beginning. The man looked at Will and could not utter a word. Will looked at the man with an arrogant expression on his face. The young man looked more closely and suddenly the man's heart gave out and he fell unconscious. Will was very surprised. He asked if she was really dead. Radia listened to the man's pulse through the ground and told Will that Reed was afraid of the boy. She also added that she liked the expression on the boy's face. Will replied that he didn't care what other people thought of him. However, if it was his sister, then everything was fine. He also said that at home he wouldn't show everyone that expression. Radia said that she was glad to hear that. They looked at each other and smiled. Then Will looked at the elf girl and the draft girl. The second one had closed her eyes and was almost unconscious. The elf girl came to her senses and started looking around. Will said that everything was fine now. He apologized for having to deceive the elf girl. He asked her not to do anything stupid and he would untie her now. Will then looks at Radia. The girl understands Will's look and frees the elf girl. The elf girl hugged the other girl and then said that those men insulted her. They said she was a bad product simply because she had different body proportions compared to other Drafas. Will listened carefully to the girl. Will picked up the Drafa girl in his arms. He said he would take her to their village. There she would have some restrictions, but it was still better than leaving her here. He also says that the girl is going with them and he does not ask her. If she refuses, then they will have to kill her right here and now. The elf girl agrees. Will then turns to his sister and apologizes to her for asking her. He asks if the girl can take care of this girl and the corpses. It will be bad if they don't treat these wounds immediately, so he will go home first. Radia was surprised and said that Will was showing interest in something other than spirits. It was rare. She agreed and said that she understood. Radia then turned to the elf girl and said that she was going to clean up after herself, so she asked the girl to be very obedient. The elf girl agrees and calls Radia mistress, and Will goes to the village. After some time, Will returns to the village and is greeted by his sister Hinori. Hinori asks what is wrong with that girl. Will says he'll explain later, so he asks Hinori to report to Milady that he took care of the intruders and they rescued the elf and the draft. Sister Radia returns here with the elf. However, this girl is in critical condition, so he must heal her wounds. Will lays the girl on the bed and begins to use magic. Eventually, all the wounds on her body disappeared. Will says that should help. At least her life is no longer in danger. He looks at the girl and realizes that it is as if he is looking at his own reflection. He realizes that she is different from all the others. If it weren't for everyone else's help, he would have died. Hinori's scream was heard, saying that she had brought her mother here. Sadia said that she had heard that the boy had brought the girl home and put her to bed. She said that the boy could not do that because it was too early for him. Will said that it was just a misunderstanding. Sister would explain everything to them when she returned. And he also told Hinori that she should never say anything so ambiguous that it would cause misunderstandings. The boy and Hinori start arguing. Will said that he couldn't believe the girl when she had such a smirk on her face. Hinori replied that the boy said exactly what the girl said. Hinori said it was because Will always seemed so calm. She wanted to see his worried face. Sadia agreed and said that she wanted to see more emotion from Will. Hinori agreed with the girl. The boy said that he did not know why the girls blew all this up. Suddenly, Radia appeared in the house and in her arms she carried an elf girl. The elf told Radia that she was too rude and asked her to be more kind. Radia asked those present what was with her look because she hadn't done anything to the elf girl. She throws out the elf girl and asks her to get on her feet already. The elf girl began to look around and asked Radia where they were. The elf said that this is the place where spirits have lived since ancient times. Only those who have visited this place know about it. She was very happy. Will told the girl that he could see that she was interested in this place. She had made a contract with the water spirit, and the way she acted during the raid, he thought the girl could be trusted. However, if he catches her betraying him, she is finished. He orders the girl to keep this in her head. The elf shouted at Will, "How dare he talk like that in the house of Lady Radia?" Suddenly the man flicked the girl on the forehead. Will said he would explain the details after the draft woke up. Until then, she could rest. He turned to his mother and said he would call her after he finished preparing. The girl agreed. Radia drags the elf girl away with her. Will is left alone, looking at the draft girl lying on his bed. Will thinks he should rest. After a while, the girl draft opened her eyes and asked where she was. The girl was examining her hands. Will suddenly turned to her and said that she had finally woken up. He turned to the girl and asked her how she felt. The girl threw herself into the young man's arms. He asked her to calm down because everything was fine. He said that those men had left. The girl began to look around and asked if the young man knew the elf girl who was with him. Will said that she was currently resting elsewhere. He would allow her to meet her later when he explained the situation. Moreover, he demanded that she take off her clothes. The girl was very surprised. She became embarrassed and asked the young man again. The girl shrank and said that the young man was going to do it anyway. She would do everything he said but asked him not to hurt her. Will told the girl not to worry because it didn't hurt. If she was so worried, she should just close her eyes and think about something else because it would all be over soon. The girl agreed. Then he took off her clothes and said that they now needed to go outside. The girl was very scared. She was surprised and asked if the young man really wanted to do this outside. Then the girl saw that they had come to some lake. Then the young man took off his clothes and, grabbing the girl, threw her into the lake. The girl came up and said that she was drowning and asked her to help. Will told the girl to be quiet because it would be difficult to wash her if she kept wriggling like that. The girl asked what the young man was going to do with her. Will asked why he would do anything with her, let alone have children, if he had just met her. Besides, the girl was still a child herself. If a girl carries a child while her body and body are still growing, that child and her own health will be at risk. He told the girl that she must remember this. The girl asked why the young man had taken off her clothes then. Will said that she was strange. "Isn't it necessary to take off your clothes to bathe?" The girl began to cry. Then the young man began to wash the girl's hair. She asked what it was because this foam smelled very nice. Will asked if she really liked it. It was a product that cleansed the hair and body. The young man then asked the girl to hold her breath for a second. Will then said that everything was great and the girl's hair became cleaner and straighter. Then came the next stage, washing the body. He asked the girl to turn around. The girl replied that she wanted to wash her body herself. Will said that they did not have much time to wash her because they were expected. She should be silent and not resist. After a while, the girl was washed and dressed in clean clothes. Will told the girl to wear this for now. Then Will shouted that they were finally done, so he asked everyone to come early and use their magic. Suddenly little spirits appeared and asked Will to play with them. They also said that it was very beautiful and simply incredible here. The girl thought that they usually didn't appear in public, although it happened occasionally. She looked at Will and realized that this man had such a kind face. She didn't think she had ever seen anything like it. Will then told the spirits that they had to go because they were expected. Then Will and the girl set off. He walked into the room and apologized for the delay. The girl saw Mel and rushed straight to her. The elf girl was delighted and, spreading her arms, turned to Kuna and asked if it was really her. The girl asked if she was okay. Suddenly, Radia grabbed the Kuna and asked her to calm down. Will said that he could see that both girls were fine. They had not yet introduced themselves. The young man said that his name was William Servental and that he was Sadia's son. Servental, the queen of perfumes. In any case, he wants to talk to the girls. First of all, he asked the girl to tell about herself. The elf girl was surprised that humans are the children of the spirit queen. Everyone looked at her attentively and silently waited for her to start talking. The girl thanked them for helping them that time. She doesn't even know how to thank them. Her name is Maldina and she is an adventurer who travels from one place to another. Another girl said her name was Cunaria and she was traveling with Maldina. Suddenly Will said there was another one. He repeated himself and told her to stop hiding because he felt uneasy when he pretended that she wasn't there. He also asked if she would just keep quiet. Maldina was very surprised. Suddenly someone said that the boy could actually see her. She tried to make sure that no one but Maldana saw her. She thanked the boy for helping Maldana and Canaria. She said that she is a water spirit and has a contract with Maldana. The spirit's name is Miserio and she is a spirit but grew up as a fairy. She doesn't have much magical power. Sadia repeated the names of Maldana, Canaria, and Miserito and said it was complicated. She was surprised to hear that Will had brought someone with him. All three of them had such clear eyes. She hoped that revealing their existence was a good idea. Sadia then approaches Canaria and strokes her head. She says that, as Will said, there is evidence that the circulation of magical power has been disrupted. Will says he noticed something when he healed her. When he poured the magical power into her, it didn't spread throughout her body. He asks if this has happened in the past when the fever lasted for a long time. Canaria agrees. He says he has the same problem. He had the same problem when he was a child. Because of this disease, the magical power in the body cannot circulate normally. In most cases, people die from fever. Canaria's actions will be hampered by disrupted magical power. A large amount of physical energy is used, which can lead to fatigue and growth failure. Canaria said that William seemed to be growing in the right way. Will said that the disease was curable. It was just a matter of restoring the original circulation path. Also in his case, his family helped him through it. He doesn't know how to thank them all. Canaria was very touched by the girl's words. The girl said that she felt good since she woke up today, and could it be that the boy helped her? Will agreed. He said that he had restored the magic circulation channels in Canaria. Now she would not tire as quickly as before. It will take some time for a full recovery. The girl was very touched and with tears in her eyes thanked the young man. Sadia interrupted and asked the girls to tell them what they planned to do from now on. She couldn't say that she would do everything they asked, but she would try to do everything in her power to make them feel good. Maldana said she wants to continue being an adventurer because she finds interesting places and learns new things that she didn't know before. That's what makes her life worth living. Canaria said hesitantly that she wanted to travel with Maldana too. Miserito said she was a spirit who had a contract with Maldana. She would follow her wherever she went. Sadia turned to William Servantel. Will responded. The girl said she wanted to give these girls what they wanted, but they couldn't just send them back to the outside world alone. She wants the young man to go there together. She orders the young man to look after the girls and accompany them. The girls are happy. Sadia added that the young man must then return alive. She asked if that was clear. Will agreed. William said responsibly that he, William Servantel, humbly accepts the order of Lady Sadia. He says that the trip will take place tomorrow morning. The next morning, Sadia was sitting in her throne room. She was silent but suddenly burst into tears because Will was leaving them. Jenny tried to calm Sadia down. Minnie agreed and asked if they hadn't discussed it with them yesterday. Sadia agreed but continued to cry. At this time, Will stood in front of a group of spirit villagers. He told the boys that he was going on a journey. Everyone said they would miss him so much. Will was told that if they had any problems, they should tell them immediately. They could also come back anytime, and Will could leave the protection of the village to them. Will thanked everyone and said he was going. All the villagers waved after him. After some time, the young man told the girls to be careful. Will dodged the monsters and eventually got exhausted. Maldana said that William was really strong. Canaria added that she didn't think the forest monsters were that cute. For example, this one didn't look dangerous. Miserito said that William is so cool and can repel anything. Will said that he has been familiar with forest monsters since he was a child. He knows how to deal with them. Maldana said she didn't understand how that was possible and didn't think anything could have been done about it, but why didn't the boys stop those men right away? Those guys wouldn't let anyone through. Will replied that these were not the guys who were going to harm his family. Rather, they were simply an obstacle for adventurers who were trespassing into the depths of the forest. However, if he left them alive, the existence of their village would likely be revealed to the outside world, so they would destroy all evidence. Will then asked Sister Hinori what she was doing in a place like this. Hinori peeked out from behind a tree and said she thought she was found out. Will said Hinori didn't even try to hide. Then he asked what happened. Hinori said that William had never left the forest before. Hinori said that since her sweet brother was so worried that he was leaving, she decided to accompany him until he left the forest. Will asked if she was really sure about that. Will said that today is patrol day, that is, duty. "Shouldn't Sister Hinori be there today?" Hinori laughed and said that everything is fine. Hinori said that she had asked her sister, Diana, to replace her, so he shouldn't worry about that. After some time, Will examined Quinaria. Quinaria said that she felt some tingling in her body. Will asked the girl to be patient for a little while. This will happen every time until she is completely healed. The magical power emanating from the young man, he asked the girl to feel how it circulates through her body. The girl should also try to feel her own circulation path. In this way, the effectiveness of strengthening her body will be higher. The girl should try to take advantage of this. She goes traveling with Maldina, then she will learn to strengthen her health. The girl agreed. Hinori turned to the boy and said that from the outside it looked like William and Quinaria were having fun. The girl immediately began to deny it. Quinaria told Hinori that William was just treating her. Hinori replied that she knew that and that Quinaria was very nice. William told Quinaria that if she was ready, he could teach her the basics of body strengthening and some self-defense techniques. For now, he could not teach her to react to monsters as quickly as he could. The girl agreed. Quinaria said she hoped it wouldn't be too difficult for him. She is sure that she will get into trouble again because she can't fight. She also wants to become strong and help everyone. Hinari said that if she starts training her, she will need to change the way she addresses her. Ku will become William's apprentice so she can call him teacher or even master. The girl was very happy and asked the master's opinion. Will said that Quinaria could call him whatever he wanted and it made no difference to him. He stood up and said that the treatment was over for today. Quinaria thanked the master. Then she ran to Maldina, then Will thought about the master. Hinori asked if the young man was really happy to have such a pretty student. At this time, in the Castle of Spirits, Empress Sadia was talking about how 15 years have passed since Will came to the village. They were able to help him, so she is so happy. The name of this child is Will. She said that if she could not participate in the child's upbringing, she would at least give him a name. She ordered that no one should dare argue with her. The girl said that this child never cries, but instead he often smiles. However, when it comes to this, it is impossible to tear yourself away. She even begins to get bored because of this. Another girl said that she comes to Will even on the days when she is on duty. The girl said that William was such a handsome and very quiet child. There was a scream in the Queen of Spirits castle. Sadia was working on papers and talking about wanting to see Will. She wanted to stop being a queen and be Will's mother. Suddenly, Jill ran into the room and told Sadia that they couldn't understand what was happening. She said that there was something wrong with him and he couldn't stop crying. He was crying as if he was in a lot of pain. Sadia was very surprised. Then they came to the baby. The spirits did not know what to do because William was crying so much. He had never cried so much before and did not look like he was in much pain. Sadia ran into the room and asked if Will was okay. She asked what had happened to him. The girl replied that they didn't understand. He suddenly started crying a while ago. It doesn't seem like it's a problem with his lunch or his diapers, but he seems to be in a lot of pain. Sadia said that she understood and also asked the girl if she could change places with her. The girl approached Will. When he cried, she cried too. The girl said that it was clear why the child had been abandoned. Everyone was surprised that she understood what was going on and then asked what they should do. Sadia said that they should ask all those who were close to the precious tree to share the fruits. She asked the girls to tell them that she would definitely thank them later. The girls agreed and ran away. Sadia asked Jilly and Minnie to listen to her carefully. William's body is now in a terrible state. His magical power is starting to leave his body. The girls were very surprised by this. Sadia said it was hard to believe, but it was true. The reason William's hair and eyes were black was because his power was so great that it caused pigmentation. Sadia is much less than William. Everyone was very surprised. Sadia added that he had a lot of magical power. It continues to accumulate in his immature body, which has not yet grown up. Usually, magical power is simply released, but it is impossible to release magical power at such a young age. Moreover, it is beyond the permitted amount. The magic has nowhere to go, and it begins to get out of control. If we leave things as they are now, this child will certainly die. That is why they must intervene. This was the reason why his parents died and left this child. They probably didn't know that the reason was because of the release of magical power. Everyone was surprised that William would die even though he was so small. They asked Sadia if she could do anything about it. Sadia told the girls to control themselves. Sadia said that William was desperately fighting for his life, so how could they give up? If they could get some fruit from the precious tree, it would be much better, but she was afraid that it would not solve the problem completely. Now she needs to release the magical power of this child, and then one of them must make a contract with this child. He will become the vessel that will receive the magical power. If she makes this pact when the magic starts to break out, no one can stop it, so she asks one of the villagers to do it. Suddenly, Hinori appears and says that she will do it. He is so small and she will not let him die. She asks Sadia to let her do it. Sadia tells Jenny and Minnie that she leaves the rest to them. Once the magic starts to be released, there's nothing she can do about it. If anything goes wrong, they have to evacuate everyone in the village. She asks the girls if they understand. She ordered them not to even try to argue with her. Everyone was very scared. Sadia began to chant and say that Will needed her power, and in return she would find him. He would feed off her power and she would give it to him. However, it did not work. Hinori asked why it did not work. Sadia answered that the contract requires mutual consent between the spirit and the one who makes it. Both parties must agree. Sadia asked Hinori to just do it until William accepted her, as many times as needed, even dozens of times. The girl agreed. However, William began to cry even harder. Sadia said that this can't be and everything is happening very quickly. There is no time to lose and the girl must leave the village. She does not know if her method will work. Suddenly, Hinori said that William is the owner of a soul. She only wants his peace. She swears on her life, on her soul, that she will live with him as one, as brother and sister. She will be his shield and will always protect him. Sadia was very surprised. She shouted about what Hinori is doing because she knows perfectly well what it means. Hinori continued and said that her soul would become Will's weapon to destroy his enemies. Sadia ordered her to cease and desist. Hinori did not listen to her and said that her name is Hinori and she is the one who will destroy all his enemies. The contract that Hinori makes with William means that he will be able to command her. She puts her life and her death in William's hands. Then Hinori screamed in pain. Sadia ordered Hinori to stop the deal now because her body might not be able to handle it. Hinori said that she was fine. She clung to William and told the boy not to worry. She promised that his sister would take care of him. Suddenly, the girl screamed in pain. Suddenly, the girl had feathers and wings. Sadia thought it was impossible. Hinori did not have enough magical power to transform into a higher-level spirit. She has never seen anything like this and cannot believe that she has turned into a spirit animal. Hinori asks Sadia what will happen to her. Hinori said that William was safe now and should be happy. Sadia said that William was indeed fine. Sadia and Hinori began to hug little Will. Sadia stroked the sleeping Hinori and said that she did everything she could. She was able to save William's life. Sometime later, the man was sitting in an empty establishment. He was talking about how it had been almost 2 months since the demonic sword had appeared in the forest. Could it be that it had disappeared? He remembers the group of adventurers and tries to figure out if he should continue preparing. After a while, Mal told Will to look straight ahead. There was the city of Phelan, a place where hatred is illegal. It is one of the few countries where the law strictly prohibits it. Will said that they were all different races. Mal said that in that case she had heard that black hair and black eyes were an abomination that brought bad luck, but despite him, she thought that was just a rumor. Will said he was lucky to be alive. He wasn't supposed to last a year. Mal asked if that was true. Will said that what humans call annihilation is that abomination. Simply put, it's an overabundance of magic. It can be said that the amount of magic power in such cases is excessive compared to ordinary people. It takes about a year for the hair and eyes to turn black from the accumulated magic and the rumors to stop. This is called the disappearance of a vile child. He is alive because his family risked their lives to save him, and that is why he is here. The girls smiled and understood. Mel said that Will wouldn't be treated badly in Vatican territory, although, of course, people might react unexpectedly to that. Will said it didn't matter what others thought. This was his first time in the outside world, and he would follow what more experienced adventurers told him. The girls agreed. Canaria said that when they told her story, she was so worried that she would never be able to grow up. However, she must be strong both physically and mentally. Then they stepped onto the stone surface. Will said that meant they fenced their territory with stone to demarcate. Mal said that was not true, surrounding cities with such a fence if used as a barrier. Will said it was a barrier. If Sister Hinori were here, she could remove their magic on the fly, and Sister Daya could neutralize them in an instant. Mal told Will to stop and not to underestimate them. If you look at the barrier in the village from their point of view, then this barrier has an abnormal level of magic. The guard noticed the new arrivals and welcomed them to the city of adventurers Phelan. He asked if they had identification. Mel said that she and the child have an ID. This man just came from the countryside and does not have an ID yet. She will ask the Adventurers Guild to make one for them. The guard agreed and then let the new arrivals into the city and wished them to enjoy the city. Then the heroes walked around the city. Mel called Will and told him to follow her so as not to lose the way. They reached the right place. The girl greeted the new arrivals and asked if she could help them. Mel said her name was Maldana and she was B rank. They came to register these two adventurers and then asked if they could help them with it. Suddenly, the visitors began to whisper that it was Maldana, who was a necromancer. It seemed that she could freely use water magic to keep her enemies away from her. They heard that she could even cut through the shell of a metal turtle. Suddenly, a man addressed the young man. He asked Will why he dyed his hair such a nasty color. He doesn't think he can get away with it. Adventurers don't like that. The female administrator told Kadza that manipulation was not allowed in the guild. The man said that people who try to get a job based on their appearance alone were not so good. Will said he didn't understand what the boy was angry about, but the black eyes and black hair were his own. Everyone in the guild was very surprised. Kadza said he didn't believe the boy. He went to the administrator and said that if his story was true, then that meant he was a cursed child. How could they just leave such a dangerous guy in their city? Mel interrupted him and asked if they could stop talking about her friend like that. It was true, but the master wasn't dangerous at all. Kadza chuckled and said it was no wonder they didn't understand. They were just some cowgirl and an elf. The black-eyed, black-haired people were dangerous. Mel said they knew they were called cursed children. Kadza said that it was indeed a cursed child. He also added that the girls knew how dangerous this guy was and still brought him to this city. He asks if they realize what they have done. Mel said she didn't care about their circumstances. Besides, if he was who they said he was, would he even exist in their world right now? Kadza told them not to regret it. He would be leaving the city soon and did not want to die. Mel thanked him for more advice, but they had been through enough together. He believed his experience more than their stories. Mel apologized to the receptionist for the interruption. She would also have to ask her to do something. The girl asked to fill out this registration form in that case. If Will wanted, she could fill it out for him. Will said that everything was fine and he could write. Then he filled out the papers. The receptionist said that everything was correct. They would soon give them an ID card, so they should wait a little longer. Suddenly, a man burst into the room. He walked up to Will. Koza was talking about he doesn't know what he's thinking. However, he thinks that the boy can't do whatever he wants in this city. Will said he didn't need the man telling him what to do. He was interfering with the process, so he should shut up. The man got angry and said it seemed Will didn't know how to listen. He would listen to him until he threw him out on the street. Then the man and his charges went outside. Will asked the receptionist that isn't this the person who is usually asked to leave. He then turns to the receptionist and says that he will be back soon, so he asked her to complete the document submission process. After a while, Will goes outside. He is met by a man who is rubbing his fists. Mal turns to Will and says that he can fight the man, but he cannot kill him. Will was very surprised and asked if he really couldn't be killed. The girl said that if he killed him in such a public place, it would hinder his further actions. He could render him incapacitated. Will said he understood and added that he just needed to incapacitate the man without killing him. The man then asked if they were really done whispering. Then he said that he was not throwing the girls out and maybe they would be taken care of so they didn't have to worry. Will said that if the man had time to talk, why not call Will later? Suddenly, a figure appeared behind him, trying to grab Will, but it didn't work. Will deftly pinned the attacker's head to the ground, then said that it was very unexpected. He asked if it was a greeting. The man got very angry. Will told him to try to overcome him. These were very unexpected attacks, so he doesn't even know if it's good or not. The man demanded that Will shut up. Suddenly, he ordered all his charges to grab Will. The next moment, the young man stopped one of the attackers and then threw him aside. Will lunged at the second man and threw him aside as well. He then moved towards the third one and eliminated him with a punch attack. He appeared in front of the main man and, finding himself behind him, knocked him to the ground and began to pull his arms back. The man screamed that he understood everything and asked Will for forgiveness, saying that they had made a mistake. Will told the man that he was not so kind as to forgive his opponents and let them go unharmed. Will said that he would mock the man with his left hand. The man began to scream hysterically. The people who looked at him were surprised and said that they would rather give up. After all, this is a cursed child who almost killed their comrade. Will went to the men and told them to thank Koji for making their lives difficult. If they were satisfied with this arrangement, they could fight again. The men turned away. The young man turned and walked towards Mel and Kun, and then they all went into the Adventurers Guild together. After some time, the three of them enter the Adventurers Guild. They are met by a man who calls William by name. He apologizes and asks the young man if they could talk about one matter. Will was surprised and asked the man who he was. The man said that it was a bit rude, but his name was Shazar and he was the head of the Adventurers Guild. Since he was responsible for the guild, he had to find out what was going on. He hoped that Will could help him with that. Will said that the man saw that one of his guild members had attacked him and that was why he had struck back. That was all he wanted to say about the situation. The man chuckled and said he didn't mean to blame Will for that. This might seem a bit long-winded, but he wanted to ask him something. He asks how a man who was born a cursed child could grow up to be such a decent person. No matter how much he read various literature, he had never heard before of a child who lived longer than a year. He asked William if he could tell the man his story. He can't treat him specially, but he promises that he will make sure that he and his friends in the guild are not disturbed. Will agrees and says he needs a bigger place. This is necessary to prove the truth of his story. Preferably, do it outdoors. The man says he understands and says that the Adventurers Guild has a training camp. They can go there. Will says that if anyone wants to hear the story, the man should let them. It's hard to explain the same thing every time. Even if there are people who don't like him, Shazar should let them in anyway. The man agreed and said he would gather everyone. Will added that he would need a little time if the man did not mind. Will asked the man to let him know when everyone was ready. In the meantime, he would study the information he needed to know about the guild. Shazar then calls Celica and tells her to bring tea and sweets, and Shazar will accompany these important people. Celica agreed but was very scared. After some time, everyone was gathered. Will said they were there to talk. Shazar agreed and said the attitude of all these people towards the cursed children was not very good. Will agreed and said he thought it best to get started quickly. He asked Shazar to take him to the training camp. Shazar asked everyone to follow him. Will said he thought the outside world could really be a lot of trouble. After a while, everyone gathered at the training camp. Will said that he would begin his story from here and then answer each question one by one, but that they were not to interrupt him while he was answering. People say that such a child who brings misfortune has an unusually huge magical power. The change in hair color to black occurs due to the pigment, due to the accumulated magical power. The reason for the disappearance of such people is that the amount of magical power inside is really huge. It becomes uncontrollable and begins to break out. For now, that's all they need to know about these kids. He asks if there are any questions. The man tells him what Will told him and adds that the destruction of these kids after a year seems inevitable. However, the young man had made significant progress in life and they needed convincing evidence of why and how this happened. Suddenly another man shouted and said that the disappearance was inevitable and there was no other evidence. He asked how anyone could trust a child's words. Will thanked him for the predictable reaction and said that he knew there would be those who would tell him that. However, he was bound to someone who could prove it to them. Will asked Shazar if he could raise a goal here. Shazar said he didn't mind. Then Will began the summoning. He said he was summoning the one with the red soul. He wished to remain in such an existence. The one who was close to his soul, and he asked her to turn his soul to dust. Will commanded the princess of the red-winged hawks phrase to descend to earth. Farniel, Hinori suddenly appeared. The guild leader was very surprised that a high spirit had appeared. The other people said that only a few had agreed to such a pact, but they had never seen a high spirit with such wings. Hinori greeted Will and said that they had not seen each other for a long time and she was very glad that the young man had called her. Will greeted the girl. He said he was very glad that Hinori had responded. Hinori then greeted Maldina and Canaria. She asked if the girls were getting along with William. The girls agreed. Maldina said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and Will was helping them a lot. Quinaria added that the master was teaching her many things and she was very happy every day. They were distracted by Shazar, who turned to William and asked if this was really summoning magic. So the girl was a spirit, just a higher level spirit, considering they were a hybrid. Will stopped him and said that before he explained, he needed to correct him. Hinori is not just a high-level spirit, she is the highest form of spirit, that is, the highest spiritual being. Everyone was surprised. The man shouted that it was a lie. The spirit beast only appeared in legendary tales. Besides, Will was a cursed child and would never have been able to make such a contract. Hinori got angry and said that the men were told to listen silently. She didn't care what he thought of her, but she wouldn't let him humiliate William. She was about to vent her anger but was interrupted by Shazar, who asked her to calm down and calm down. He promised that he would talk to this guy himself and not let him talk like that again. Hinori and Will exchanged glances. Will told Hinori that they would forgive him this time. This meeting could be beneficial for them in the future. Hinori agreed and said that she would leave it in the past, but everyone should remember that next time it will not happen. Shazar thanked Hinori. Will said that they would continue the conversation and that was the end of his story. Shazar was very surprised by all this and that Will had a spirit beast. Will asked Shazar if he kept his promises. Shazar agreed and said that excessive contact with Mr. William and his friends was prohibited, but others could ask their questions. The Tiger Man told Will that he was sorry he didn't believe his story. He was a representative of this town and his name was Sierra. He promised to help him if he had any problems. The other man said his name was Asem and he was the organizer of the guild's production activities. He was a blacksmith himself. If he could do anything for Will, he would be happy to cooperate with him. The girl said that she was the head of the trade section of the guild and her name was Nanatura. He could contact her if he needed anything. The boy said that his name was Baselard and that he was a diplomat of the Humanian kingdom. Will agreed and said that he forgave everyone. He would live in this city for a while and was going to learn a lot here. He would rely on them during this time. Hinori said she thought that was it, so she was going back. She asked Will to invite her back sometime. Will agreed. He thanks the girl for today and would rely on her again. Hinori told Meldina and Quinaria to get along with Will. Meldina replied that she was looking forward to meeting Hinori again. Quinaria thanked Hinori. Hinori said goodbye to everyone. Shazar was very surprised at this time that Will was able to summon and return without any problems. It is impossible to do this with ordinary power. He cannot believe that Will is capable of such a thing. Shazar turns to Will and says that he is truly sorry about what happened, then adds that he made him an ID. Will takes the ID and thanks Shazar. After some time, the main characters were walking along the streets of the city. Mel asked Will if it was time for them to rest. Will agreed. The girl pointed her finger and said that the place would be perfect. She pointed to a place called Wooden Tomery. As they walked inside, they were greeted by an employee. The man said the cost of accommodation was 5 silver coins per person per night. If they shared a room, then 4 coins each. Maldina said they needed a room for 3 people for 2 nights. She would be in the room and the girl next to her in a separate room. Meldina said that she would pay then, and then she remembered that when she and Canaria were kidnapped, they took the money. Meldina realized that they had money. Suddenly Will took out the money and said that there were 4 gold coins and 5 silver ones. He asked to take care of them for the next 5 days. Canaria thanked the young man. The man said that Will was a good man. He didn't let a woman pay for him, but he paid for it. He had no doubt that it was so. He also says that his daughter will take him to the rooms. He calls a girl named Ruru and asks her to take the clients to their rooms. Suddenly a girl with cat ears and a tail appears. Will is surprised. Then she runs up and bows, greeting the guests. The girl thanked the boys for using their services. She would show them their rooms, so she asked them to follow her. Meldina whispered to the boy, thanking him and saying that she had completely forgotten that her purse had been stolen. The boy waved his hand. Ruru then led them to her rooms. The girls were spending time in their room, but suddenly they heard Will's voice, who asked, turning to Maldina and Canaria, if they had a minute. Maldina opened the door and asked Will what was wrong. There was something he didn't understand how to use. Will said that now the place with the night's lodging was decided, so from tomorrow he would like to start training Quinaria in combat techniques. He wants to know how much experience and knowledge Quinaria has. Maldana agreed and asked the young man to go into the room. Will told Quinaria that starting tomorrow he will begin teaching him basic martial arts and physical training. Before that, however, he needed to know about his own physical fitness and combat experience. He asked Quinaria to tell him what she knew. Quinaria said that she had no experience in combat. When traveling with Maldana, she simply ran away or hid somewhere. Physical enhancement is a type of magic that uses magical power to increase physical capabilities. That's all she knows. Will suggested she start over step by step. Maldana stopped them. She asked if she could ask something. It seemed the physical reinforcement she was using was a little different from the one Will was using. Quinaria agreed. Will replied that he didn't know if she would understand it. If she had any questions, she shouldn't be shy and ask him. Will continued and said that as he had told Quinaria, physical enhancement was magic that enhanced physical abilities. For example, if Quinaria's own physical ability was 1, then you need to improve your physical abilities with magical power and increase your physical load to 3 or 4. Maldana said that Will says you can work up to 3 or 4. There are individual differences in physical fortification and there are limits. If you fortify your body but exceed this limit, your body will be damaged. Will asked Maldana if she knew what physical fortification was. Maldana replied that she knew that a vanguard with magical power, like warriors with magic, was more effective than a simple mage. Will said that it was not like that at all. Maldana said she couldn't be wrong. William asked what Maldana's personal limit was, the limit under normal conditions. The reason why the vanguard is more effective is because they have more stamina because they train their body. Maldana said that in other words, to increase the limit of her physical strengthening, she just needs to train. Will agreed and said that was effective too. Will then turned to Quinaria. If you put more into a vessel that could break than it can handle and they still want to use it, he asks how to use it. Quinaria said to fill it slowly and carefully. Maldana asked for an answer, but Will asked her to be quiet. He said that the girl needed to hurry with the answer. Even if she filled it slowly and carefully, the vessel could still break. Quinaria asked what she needed to do to use the vessel safely. Then she became happy and said that she needed to strengthen the use. It would be much safer that way. Will said that was the correct answer. Strengthen and simply increase strength. If they strengthen the body beyond its limits, they will take damage. If they simply strengthen their body, they will not take any damage. The amount of magical power consumed will increase. Maldana began to train and asked if she was doing it right. Maldana said that she thought stereotypes were holding her back. Quinaria said that it seemed like Maldana was just now getting the point. She asked if she could try. Will said that Maldana had been able to strengthen her body, but it wasn't about feeling healthier. He thinks that Quinaria, who knows nothing, will be able to learn faster. Quinaria asks if that is true. Will says it depends on Quinaria's efforts. Today they have practiced to feel the magical power that circulates inside, and tomorrow the full training will begin. Quinaria said that they will try. After some time, Quinaria and Will were training. Will said that because she was too focused on the enemy, her magic power was chaotic. He ordered the girl to concentrate. The girl agreed. Will told the girl to remember the circulation of magical power, even when she can't move. If she mentally penetrates every corner of her body, then this action alone will speed up your recovery. Maldana said that she saw it every day, but William's magical powers and skills are at the highest level. Usually, it is ineffective to transfer magical power to other people to transform it. Will said that he had been sharing his magical powers with spirits since he was a child. Transferring magical power is not difficult if he does not know the right amount. Maldana said that this is not considered normal. The water spirit asked Will if he could give her some of his power then. Will said he was fine with it. However, if she took too much magic, she would no longer be able to take Maldana's magic. Will asked if that was true. Maldana asked Will what he thought. Will said that, in essence, the quality does not change when transferring different types of magical power, but he does not know how good an idea it is. Will said that you can transfer magical power between a spirit and a performer. Maldana said that when she signed the contract with Miserio, she felt like she was connected to her. After that, she did pretty well. That's why she didn't think much about it. Will said it was a feeling of connection. They call it resonance. Those who made the contract were connected on a soul level. Because through this connection, the magical power is also transformed into quality. This makes it easier to transfer magic. Will then asked Quinaria if she was okay. Quinaria stretched. Will added that he could see the whole problem now. Quinaria had very poor energy coverage due to her small stature. There was potential for growth in the future, though. They should train with weapons that she could use, and that would complement her even after she grew up. Miserio said that if Will was comfortable, the bow would work. Will said that Quinaria was probably related to the cow race, and when she grew up, the bow would need to be made a little bigger. Quinaria was frightened and asked if it would really tear her form apart. The girl cringed. Will said he could recommend a spear or an axe for that. If she wants ease of use and movement, then she can choose a spear. If she wants a devastating blow, then she should choose an axe. You can choose the weapon that Quinaria wants. The girl said she wanted to use an axe. Maldana said that Kuna would be fighting for the first time. Maybe she would choose a spear. Isn't it easier to handle, as Will said. Quinaria agreed. She said that she knew it was better to choose the weapon that Mal and the Master spoke of. But this would be her first battle and her weapon. She thought that at first she would not be able to fight well, no matter what weapon she chose. That's why she wants to use the axe, because she hasn't used it before. She wants to gain strength. Maldana said that she understood Quinaria's feelings very well. The young man replied that from tomorrow, in addition to strengthening their bodies, they would do Western-style exercises. Miserio said that Will spoke so calmly about everything. Maldana asks the boy if everything is okay. She has never seen Will use an axe. She asks if the boy is sure he is ready to do this. Will replied that he could use any weapon as long as it was basic. His family trained him, so he was trained in many ways. Fists, like his body, cannot be fragile. Quinaria wondered if someone like her could ever be that strong. Suddenly, something frightens her. Will says he doesn't know what the girl is worried about, but he will take care of her, so she shouldn't worry. He won't miss a single blow from her. She asks the girl if she is ready. Quinaria smiles and agrees. She thinks that the master says that he will teach her everything, so she will become stronger. Will says that the girl will have to choose a weapon first, so they come to the city to choose a weapon at the shop. Will says he doesn't think they need one. Quinaria asks what they do. She heard it was in the gun shop. She thought it looked good. Will said that there might be problems with the blade. It's not very well sharpened. The blade is uneven. It will most likely break quickly. Mal asked if there was a weapon that would be worthy of Will's attention. Suddenly, a man calls Will. Will asks if he remembers correctly that the man's name is Isem. The man is surprised that the boy remembered his name. He asked if they were really looking for weapons and armor or just hanging out. Will said that as far as he remembered, Isem was in charge of the manufacturing side of the guild. He was looking for weapons for Quinaria. They can't find a good weapon. He asks Isem if he knows a suitable store. The man thought for a moment and said that judging by William's eyes, they were not happy with the weapons they had seen in the stores nearby. He was very curious. He offered the young man to take them to his store. The best quality in this town is undoubtedly his shop, and he is very proud to be the best at it. Will said that was comforting. He was just starting to think about going to another city. Quinaria thanked Isem, and then they all headed to the man's shop. Maldana said that it seemed like a long walk. Quinaria agreed. After a while, Isem said that they had arrived. Quinaria was surprised and said that it was a dead end. Will asked if Isem's shop was really underground. Isem was surprised and said that Mr. Will had already guessed. Isem said he only sells guns to people he can trust, so the shop is underground, out of sight from the main street. Then suddenly a passage opens in the brick wall. The man invites everyone inside. The man asks them to look around. He invited everyone to the Eagle store. Maldana looked at the goods and was very surprised. The weapons were so good that they could not even be compared with those in other stores. Quinaria was very happy. Isem said they seemed to like it, and that was the main thing. Every weapon they saw here was a masterpiece. He also said they could take their time. Will decided to look around and notices an axe in a barrel. Suddenly, his name is Quinaria. He gives the girl this axe and asks her to take it and try it. The young man looks at the axe and tells the girl to be careful. This is the best weapon in this shop. He doesn't even know how it was processed like this, and judging by its magical conductivity, it contains mithril. But despite this, the weapon is quite durable, and this does not weaken the destructive power of the axe. To be honest, he thought such a treasure existed. Isem laughed very loudly and said that William had figured it out at first glance. The axe was made of a special metal, a mixture of tamahagane and mithril. It has excellent efficiency, but because the color itself is dull, most people do not find anything remarkable about it. However, the young man had made a contract with a spirit beast. This made him interested. Will told Isem that he thought he'd stop there. There was a price written here, and then he asked how much the axe cost. Isem said he didn't need money. From the very beginning, he didn't want to take money from whoever chose this weapon. He wanted to meet someone who would immediately see the value of a weapon and know its advantages. This was his place. Isem said that was all. Spirit 1 is the result of great effort. William has a contract with a spirit beast, one of the strongest, but he still behaves respectfully. He asked the young man to just take this weapon. Will said he appreciated it. It was just a little awkward that it was free. Isem said he didn't need the money and would just take the gun. Suddenly, Will hands Isem a stone. The man was very surprised when he saw the magic stone. Will said that it was a stone of fire. Will throws a rock at the man and asks if he can catch it. Isem yells at Will not to throw such precious stones. Isem asked Will to handle the stone with care. Will asked the man if he could take care of the stone. Now it belongs to Isem, so he can take this stone. He can do with it whatever he wants. Isem said that he understood that he would take care of him, so he thanked him. He also added that it meant too much to him. Isem also told Will to choose a weapon for this lady as well. It would be a gift from him. Maldina was surprised and showed Will a dagger and asked for it. Will apologized to Isem for Maldina. Isem told Will not to worry because he got more than him anyway. Isem asked William if he really needed anything. Will replied that he preferred his fists to weapons. However, if Isem wanted, he would serve them the next time they came. Isem said that was fine and the burden could come again. He also added that Will was always welcome there. After a while, the seminar for new adventurers came to an end. Will said that the lesson was over and the rest would be tomorrow. Today, he and Quinaria would work on special techniques. Quinaria thanked the young man, and in her hands she held an axe. Will asked the girl to come to him. She agreed. Will thought that at first she could barely lift the axe. Quinaria agreed and swung the axe. Will realized that Quinaria was getting stronger. Will said he would teach her martial arts today. The girl said she was ready. Complex training. It is a method that allows you to strengthen the body and feel the circulation through it. Will said that was it for today and they could finish. Will offered to spread the remaining magical power to the girl and restore her physical abilities. Quinaria said that she understood. Suddenly, Maldina came up to them and said that Kuna was getting stronger every day. Will said that at first he thought she would give up quickly, but now he was amazed at Quinaria's persistence. Maldina was surprised that Will could really be surprised by something. She did not expect this, but she asks Kyun to try. She will also become stronger using special training. Will said that he had been just training them for the last few days, but soon they would be fighting in real battles. Maldina was happy and said that Kuna was getting stronger, and Will was encouraged by that too. The time of adventurers was beginning. Kuna said that she was really looking forward to it. She doesn't want to be a burden to Master and Maldin, so she will do her best. Everyone smiled, looking at Quinaria. After a while, Will was sitting in his room. He thought that so far he was doing well with them. There were no suspicious actions, so far he could trust them. Hinori replies that Will let them know right away if he has any problems. They don't have any particular problems either. A few intruders have entered the forest, but not very deep. So far, they haven't seen any actions that could cause problems. Will said that it seemed that the words of people with high adventurer ranks carried weight in the outside world, so he would try to become a high adventurer for a while. He hoped that the forest would only be used as a territory. Hinori said that she knows William is brave, but her sister is also willing to help. Radia added that one should think first when going to the outside world. She thinks that Will needs to think about himself. Suddenly, a girl named Fu burst into the conversation and asked Will to call her next time and then she would forgive him. Will agreed. The girls began to communicate with each other and wished to convey their wishes to Will. Suddenly, someone called Will. The young man apologized to the spirits and said that he would contact them later. Suddenly, Quinaria entered the room and told the master that she was in trouble and asked the young man to look at her. She shouted that her form was getting a little bigger. Will was very surprised. The girl began to feel her form and rejoice. Will said that he was glad that the circulation of magical energy was almost completely restored and the girl's body began to grow again. Canaria was delighted and said that it was definitely true, and not only the form but everything else would grow more and more. She will be just like Satya, Hinori, or Radia, and someday she will be a beautiful woman. Will called the girl and she stopped. Will told Quinaria that she had better put something on. She might catch a cold after the hot bath. Quinaria was very surprised and asked again. The girl became confused and suddenly Maldana's voice was heard, turning to Will and saying that she thought Canaria was coming here. Maldana told Kuna that she was of course glad she found Will, but if it had been any other guy here, she would have regretted it. Canaria apologized and said that she wanted to tell the master that he had healed her because she had started growing again. Maldana said that she understood. Maldana said that was always the case with Canaria. When she started to worry, she couldn't see what was really going on around her. It was a little out of control, but he would work on it. Will said he didn't think the current Quinaria wouldn't be able to take care of herself if something happened. Quinaria said she'd be fine, but the girl gathered them all. Maldana invited them all to dinner. After a while, the boys were standing at the bulletin board. Maldana said she thought the place looked nice. It was still early morning, so they had plenty of time. They chose tasks such as researching Luan plants and Cusack fruits or defeating the homeless couple. Maldana said there was a request for Luan plants. The methods Will used in teaching were so revolutionary. She heard that the young man was like a real professor. Maldana said that maybe the teaching of the properties of medicinal herbs that was taught to beginners could also improve. Will said that he understood and added that he had already helped with his advice. Then they come to the Adventurers Guild. The administrator greets them and wishes them a good morning because they are early today. Maldana says that today is Will and Canaria's first day of work. She asks if she really starts the day with work too. The receptionist agrees. Maldana gave them 3 requests. The girl said that it was excellent and also turned to William and Canaria and wished them good luck with their work today. William agreed and Canaria thanked them and said they would try. Suddenly, the administrator stopped them and asked if they really had already reported 2 completed requests. She then said that 2 quests had been completed so far, defeating Coppelt and collecting Luan herbs and Cusack fruits. The girl said she would write 3 and there was 1 more request left, the last one. Will said that they should finish the last task quickly. Then they came to the mansion and met a guard at the gate. Will showed a piece of paper and said that they came on request. The guard looked at the piece of paper and smirked. He asked everyone to wait a moment. Canaria said that his expression changed so much that it scared her. Maldana added that it was the most disgusting grin she had ever seen. Maldana added that he was definitely up to something. Canaria looked at Will and asked if he was okay. Will said that, as he said earlier, it doesn't matter what he thinks about strangers. If he dwells on it, his head will hurt. Then the guards approached them and asked them to follow them. The boys walked along a long corridor and then saw a large cage with an angry monster inside. The guard said that the owner loved his pet, a huge wolf, very much. The guard asked the boys to have fun but not to harm him. He pointed at Will and said that he was unarmed so he would deal with him. Maldana was very surprised. Will replied that the request said they should play with the pet. The guard replied that wasn't there a note in the column. If it helps relieve the animal's stress, then it's fine. Will asked the guard to open the door. The man replied that being confident was cool, but he had to be careful not to get eaten so quickly. The door opens and the young man goes inside. The guards lock the door and then Will hear someone's roar. He sees a huge monster in front of him. Will said that it seemed like there was a lot of anger stored up inside of it. Will told everyone not to worry because he would be okay. The monster growled and rushed towards the young man. Will suddenly dodged. The monster turned around. Then the young man asked him to calm down and told him not to worry, otherwise the tension in his body would increase. Will was surprised when the monster rushed at him again, but the boy was able to dodge it. The guard was surprised and asked how this was possible, and wasn't the boy an E-rank adventurer? Maldana said that if that were the case, Will would never have defeated those wolves. Canaria said that while it was not a serious job, the master's actions could still be instructive. The pets began to frolic and play with the young man. Will said that they had left them in such a small room. They needed to train with the animals and they would start to get better. The young man began to play with these animals. Will strokes the pet and says that it is better for him, this good boy. The guard said that it is impossible because Silbert cannot become so attached to other people. Suddenly, the mistress of the house appeared. The guards began to ask if she was all right. The woman turned to Latris and asked what it all meant. The man said that these guys had received a request from the Adventurers Guild. He took the guy to Silbert's place and let him take care of him. The girl said that they had come today. They were the same adventurers she had asked Tomoberta to take for a walk. She asked why the guard had brought them to her husband, Silbert. The man replied that he must have misunderstood. He thought they were there to look after Silbert. Will said that was a lie. He added that the person who ordered the request he showed them was Mrs. Sanada, and then he was brought to this place. Also, when they explained about the animals, they said that they were the owner's pets. In fact, they just didn't like his black eyes and black hair, so they brought him here on purpose. Maldina added that they were so surprised that Will easily dodged Silbert's attacks that they thought he was an adventurer of Rand E. In other words, they deliberately brought them to this place, knowing the danger that Silbert could bring them. Canaria added and said that this is what the man meant when he told the master to be careful so that they would not be eaten so quickly. The lady turned sharply to the guard named Latris. She announced that the man was dismissed. He must pack his bags and leave at once. The man threw himself at her feet and asked her to forgive him. He asked the woman why he was protecting this guy. What difference did it make if something happened to him? The woman replied that the man knew nothing about him. If he had thought about it, he would have understood. Although he looks like a child who brings only misfortune, he is still a human being and is recognized by all the elders of Farron's family. How could he do such a thing without telling her or her husband? The guard is taken away. The woman turns to the boys and asks them for forgiveness for causing them inconvenience. She had heard William's story but had forgotten to inform the servants of it. She apologized and said she did not understand it all very well. Maldina replied that the girl did not need to apologize for her servants and also asked the woman to raise her head higher. The woman asked the boys if they would like to tell about their work successes and also said that she would show them Albert's room. The girl asked the boys to follow her. At this point, Will said that he would be very grateful if they would open the door for him. Everyone suddenly remembered Will. Maldina asked in a panic that the boy really thought that they had forgotten about him. Will looked at them indifferently and said that was not true at all. After some time, the heroes came to the establishment, Wooden Dragon Knotmery. Maldina said that they were celebrating the first successfully completed work of Will and Kuna. She knew they would do well. The first cup after a successful job is the best. Will said that after inspecting Albert's room and playing with Silbert, they were given so many rewards. Mel said that she even thought that Silbert didn't want Will to leave. She was glad that he was convinced by the words about Mrs. Sonata Poslet and about one more question. Silbert seemed to understand human language. Suddenly, a female employee appears and says that she has brought steaks of young rabbits and a salad of seasonal vegetables and also stewed pork with salt. She wishes bon appetit. Canaria thanked Ruru and Maldina said that Ruru's father was truly a master at cooking. Ruru responded that she was glad that the guests thought so. She also really liked her father's dishes. Mal suddenly asked if they had decided on the next request. It wasn't a big deal to her, of course, but she would give preference to requests related to combat since Quinaria needs more experience. Quinaria tried to say something, but Maldina stopped her and asked the girl not to talk with her mouth full. Will added that it was time for Kunya to become stronger, not to mention special training. It would be better to have some practical experience. He asked Maldina to let him know if she saw a good request because he would be training Quinaria in special training for a while. The girl said she understood. After a while, Hinori showed up and said that they hadn't called her for a long time. It seemed that everything was fine. Quinaria agreed and said that everything was fine. At this point, Mesurio asked William to stop tickling her. Will said that he would do it just a little bit. Hinori approached Mio and said that she remembered how angry the girl used to be when she trained with her and tickled her. Quinaria said that she thought she understood why now. Hinori replied that Ku also gets angry sometimes, but once she gets used to it, it's okay. Then Mio said that it's finally over. Then Will asked Maldina to come to him. The girl was surprised and said that she definitely did not need it. She tried to refuse. However, Meldina was grabbed by Hinori and she said that she would not let her go. She started tickling her and said that it was definitely supposed to be ticklish. She asked Kuna to wait for it too, then she said that Mel would soon get used to it. Then Hinori said that Mel and Mio were here this time too. She finally wanted to remind them that they couldn't use magic left and right. They had to control the magic power to suit their purposes. They understand that a spell that uses 2 magical powers is more powerful than one that uses only 1 magical ability. Therefore, they should train more for magical powers. The girls agreed and thanked her. William asked Hinori to take care of himself. The young man agreed and asked Hinori to say hello to everyone from him. Before leaving, Hinori said that she promised Fu that she couldn't be called, so it was a secret. Will said that he understood and that it seemed like she was a little delayed. Hinori laughed and said that her brother was so popular with the sisters. She asked him not to get too cocky and then said that they would see each other again. Then Will said that they needed to find work for today. Maldina and Canaria smiled. At this time in the kingdom of the Humanians, a man was kneeling in front of a man sitting on a throne. The man relayed the information that was reported in Farron about the child who brought bad luck. He was so upset that he could not get along with his spirit animal and he is very sorry. The man said that this was nonsense and did it mean that the cursed child was considered to be the one who had great magical powers. Other men thought about spirit beasts and asked if they were all myths. He asked about magical power and if it was the reason for the extinction of this species. Suddenly the man turned to Beezalard and said that he did not care about the spirit beasts but he was interested in this cursed child William. He asked if it was possible to bring this man to their country. Beezalard agreed. However, he is afraid that the negotiations may take some time. In a sense, they will be asking him honestly. He is really very worried. The man said he would delegate it to someone else. Then another man jumped in and said he had an idea. According to Lord Beezalard, this William is an adventurer. If so, he should be appointed as an escort from Farron to their country. Why don't they ask him to come to their country? The man on the throne thought it was a good idea. He was going to call there anyway. If he was accompanying one of the most important men in his country, they could invite him to the castle without raising suspicion. Suddenly, a girl entered the room and asked who would be sent to Farron to accompany them. She smirked and said that the cursed child was an adventurer named William. She was very interested and very tempted. At this time, Will, Mal, and Kuna were in the Adventurers Guild. The receptionist girl said that she confirmed the request was completed. She also congratulates them and says that from today, Will and Kuna have been promoted to D rank. Everyone is also pleased with their work, not to mention their achievement rates. The results are impressive. Maldina said that as their mentor, she is proud of them. From now on, she will also participate as a member of the team along with William and the others. Canaria was delighted and said that they would finally be able to work with Mel and it would be so much fun. The receptionist girl told William that he and his friends could spare some time for her. Will agreed and said that he had nothing planned for the day anyway. He asked what happened. The girl said that the guild master wanted to talk to them. He asked her to take Will and his friends to the room. She also says that she will accompany them. After a while, they knock on the door of the guild master. The girl says that it is Celica. Will came with his friends, so she escorted them to him. The guild master allows them to enter. Will and the group enter the room and are very surprised. The guild master looks very bad. Shazar congratulated the guys on their new D rank. He also thanked Maldina for her work as a mentor. He congratulates her as well. Quinaria said that Shazar had such circles under his eyes and then asked if the man was okay. Maldina asked if the man was resting. Shazar answered negatively. He said that he had been very busy lately with the Luan grass and the bush berries that Will had told him about. He had finished his research, so they need not worry, as he would soon be able to rest. Then she asked Will if he had changed his mind. If they joined, he would name his research after him. His words would increase significantly. Will said he liked being an adventurer now. He was sorry, but he didn't want to waste time studying the medicinal herbs he had learned about. As he had said, he didn't want a man to shine her name as a discoverer. This time, Shazar called William and his friends because he wanted to ask them to deal with the bandits. This was originally a privilege for C-rank adventurers, but unfortunately they are not in town right now. Since it was a very urgent matter, he still consulted with some B rank and above adventurers, but they turned him down. That's why he remembered William and his friends. He wonders if William and Quinaria have C-rank abilities. She asks Will what he thinks. Will turns to Maldina and Quinaria and then says he's thinking about taking the case. He asks the girls what they think about it. The girls agree and say they will take on the case. Will turns to Shazar and says they have decided. He asks the man to tell him the details of this request. After some time, the guys arrived at the right place. Will said that it was at this place that the merchants were attacked. Maldina added that the attack had taken place 2 days ago. Many had escaped with only minor injuries and lost their cargo, but she had heard that 2 of the adventurers accompanying them had died. Will added that most likely those who carried out the attack were now resting near this place. He decided to try to track them down. Maldina added that how would they find the place where these bandits were hiding? Nosha would be able to track them down in the mountains. More information is needed. Will told them not to worry about it anymore because now he would call upon someone who would help them with this. Someone with a pure soul. He asks the spirit to come to them and unite with his soul. And finally their enemy will fall and turn into reality. He calls the White Wolf. Suddenly a girl with sharp claws and powerful paws arrives. The girl calls the boy. Will said that he finally managed to call her. The girl hugged the boy and said that it was just too much time. The girl smiled and said that she could finally smell and feel the boy. Will calls Fu and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Then he tells her to stop sniffing him. After a long walk, he smelled a little sweaty. The girl says that she likes his smell so much. The girl agreed. Will noticed Kuna and Maldina, and then he told the girls that they had not yet met her. This girl is the spirit of the wolf, the wind controller, Fumi. As they have already figured out she is his little sister, he hopes that they will get along with her. Will asks Fu about it. Fu replied that she understood everything. She also said that she had heard about Maldin and Canaria from her older sisters. However, no sister would take Fu's place because she loved her brother very much. Fu was pleased to meet them. Maldina told Fumi it was nice to meet her and then she introduced herself. Canaria said it was nice to meet her too. Miserio said she hoped they would get along. Fumi said that she only sees 2, but Miserio doesn't see them. If the brother trusts them, then Fu will do the same. Miserio said she's here and everyone calls her Mio. She doesn't know much about spirits, but she's happy to meet Fu. Meldina is too stubborn and doesn't want to admit it, but she's here to protect the girls. Fu said she was glad to meet the girls. Will said that since they had all met, she had one more thing he wanted to ask her. Fumi said that she would answer all of her brother's questions. Will said that there had been a fight between people here 2 days ago. He asked the girl if she could track them down by the scent of blood. Fumi was very disappointed. Fumi said that she loved the smell of her little brother and she was so happy. Will said that he was very sorry. He also added that he didn't have to do it if he wanted. He just asked the girl not to be so depressed. Fumi said that she wanted to be useful to her brother and help him. Fumi asked if after she did this, her brother's scent could remain on him. Will agreed and said that if the young man fulfilled her request, she would fulfill it. Fumi promised and said that she would work hard. After a while they were walking through the forest. Fumi pointed and said that there might be 8 people further on. The girl continued to sit on Will's neck. Fumi also added that these 8 people smelled really bad. They definitely hadn't been swimming and their breath was just awful. Will turned to the girls and nodded. Then Fumi got off Will's neck and they continued walking. After a while the guys saw a cave with several people in it. Will asked the girls not to let their guard down. If they were really here, it wouldn't be hard to attack. Maldina added that there were 2 guards and 30 other stupid people. Everything corresponded to what Mrs. Fumi said. A sudden attack would be a surprise for them. Will suddenly covered the girl's mouth. Will said that after Quinaria was kidnapped by the smugglers, she now seems to have a particular weakness for such men. The boy then told the girl that it was a test to see what the girl would do if Maldina wasn't there. He and Fu would always support her, so she had to try. The girl tried to catch her breath. Suddenly, she remembered all the bad moments with the peddlers. Will told the girl to remember that in the future, he and Maldina will not always be there for her. That is why if she does not overcome herself, she will never achieve results. Maldina added that Will was right. In the future, he wanted to be one of the adventurers. She also turned to Quinaria and said that someday their paths would diverge and she would have to protect herself. She will help her, so she suggests the girl to try to overcome her fear. Quinaria was very surprised. She thought about how she used to think she was strong, but she really wasn't. She always wanted to be with Maldina, and she always wanted to grow up and be as strong as Will. Quinaria gathered her strength and thought that she would do it and she would try her best. She decided that she would be stronger now and would fight with dignity together with her friends. Quinaria was very angry. Will said that he understood everything from the girl's look and said that they could move on. Maldina began to look around awkwardly and then noticed a man standing at the entrance to the cave, sighing. She thought that this time she would take the initiative, and she was very scared. She wanted to give up everything and run away. However, clenching her fist, the girl thought that she should change because she was very weak and defenseless. Suddenly, she heard Fumi start to use a spell to make Will's group move silently. Quinaria realized that it was incredibly annoying. After a while, a small stone began to roll towards the guards. He turned towards this stone, and suddenly Quinaria appeared behind him. The girl grabbed him by the neck and pressed lightly. At that moment, another guard thought it was raining. At that moment, Maldina appeared right behind him and neutralized the man with a dagger. Fumi, who had been watching the whole thing, said that Quinaria had indeed not made a single sound. Will watched the girl's deists. The next moment, Maldina began to summon a spirit, and then used a water attack directly towards the men sitting by the fire. All the men were tied with a water chain. They noticed that the enemy was attacking, but they did not understand why they were tied or how it happened. Suddenly, Quinaria ran further into the cave, with Maldina calling after her and asking what was ahead. The next moment, Will turned to Quinaria, then threw her axe straight at her. Quinaria caught her axe deftly and swung. The man who had been struck by Quinaria was immobilized and defeated. Blood splattered on the girl's face, but she looked at the man's body with fury. The other man was simply horrified as he looked at his colleague's body. Maldina suddenly turned to Mio and asked her for help, summoning an aqua storm. The water arrow pierced the man and his lifeless body fell to the ground. Everyone in the cave was scared and started running away screaming. One of the men ran out of the cave, but Fumi met him and asked where he was going. She stretched out her hand and said that she would wipe him off the face of the earth so he should say goodbye to life. The girl used the Ripper Strike and eliminated the man. Then the girl said that only one smell remained. Suddenly, a man's voice was heard, who couldn't believe his eyes that Maldina and Quinaria, these two girls, had done all this. He said that he would smash himself against the wall, but he would not rest until he had trampled them into the ground. At that moment, Maldina called upon the spirit's skill, Sharp Rain. A rain that looked like needles fell from above the man. The men screamed in unbearable pain, and Quinaria eliminated those who resisted. Eventually, the surviving men were tied up. Will told them that if they sat quietly and calmly, they might even survive until the Adventurers Guild arrived. Then they will hand them over to the authorities, and then they will decide what to do with them. If they resist or try to escape, they will be killed immediately. She asks if there are any questions. One of the men said he had a question. He said that the child who was hiding behind the woman was making demands on them. He was standing aside while the woman was fighting. The man asked if the boy really didn't have enough strength. Another man called the boy a weakling. Will said that if he had the courage to say such a thing, then he didn't really want to fight him. He also said that anyone could attack, and if they won, he would let everyone go. The men stood up at once and began to attack Will, shouting for him to die. The next moment, Will pushed himself off the ground. The men exchanged swords but missed. Will suddenly appeared and kneed one of the men in the chin. He grabbed the others by the head and pinned them to the ground. There was another man left in front of him. Will closed his eyes and kicked a pebble at his foot, hitting the other man in the head. He fell unconscious to the ground. He eliminated the remaining man with his elbow. Will grabbed the dagger and swung it, cutting the next few men. He then pulled out 2 more blunt knives and threw them at the 3 men. The remaining men were very surprised. They threw away their weapons and said that they were surrendering and that they were wrong. They asked Will for mercy and said that they would sit quietly. Will eliminated the rest and then said that he gave them a choice from the start, but they chose the worst option. The tied men began to shake with fear. Will added that watching adults was such a hassle, so he needed to think of something to kill time. He asks the rest what to do with them. The men bowed their heads and said that they dare not resist any more and they will sit quietly, so they asked Will not to kill them. Will agreed with them and said that it was even better this way. He called Maldina and Canaria and asked the girls to collect what looked like evidence, and then they should bring it to Will, while he looked after the remaining men. Canaria agreed with the order. Maldina said they needed witness statements, so Will should try to leave at least one alive. After a while, already night, the Adventurers Guild was in a complete commotion. The receptionist girl said that only today, even if they are E-rank all those who can leave right now, they should go to the reception desk. Another male administrator said that he had accidentally arrived early and there was such a fuss. The young man agreed and said that it was rare to find such work nearby. Everyone was on edge because the sooner they got ready, the sooner they could set off. Shazar said that all this was so sudden. He would go with everyone to ensure that the mission was carried out perfectly. He turned to Maldina and Canaria and asked them to explain everything to him. The girls agreed, and Canaria added that they would be happy to explain everything. After some time, a group of adventurers arrives at the cave. People are simply horrified when they see many body parts. Suddenly, there was a sound like someone throwing up. The group could not go any further because they were beside themselves with terror. Someone who made that horrible sound said it wasn't him, but the next moment he made that sound again. Horror was described on everyone's faces. Then Will came out to them and said that even the guild master came when he saw Shazar enter the cave. Shazar told William that the squad to pacify the bandit group had arrived. Then Maldina and Canaria approached Will. Will addressed the girls and said that they had done a good job. They had completed the task even faster than he thought. Shazar also said that he was surprised at how quickly the report was delivered. Will pointed to the shaking men and said that these two were the only ones left alive, and the things they had stolen were lying a little deeper in the cave. Shazar replied that he understood. Shazar turned to the other adventurers and said that he was announcing a task. They were to check everything immediately and make a list. They were also to remove all the corpses and take the survivors into custody. The man also said that they would go with him. He grabbed the chain that bound the men and pulled the shaking bodies with him. Will looked at all the adventurers busy. He turned to Canaria and said that they would have to bury the bodies. He told Canaria that they would dig holes. Before digging out blows, the blow must penetrate the target. This will increase the power of destruction. Canaria must be more careful. The next moment, Will struck the ground with a powerful blow. This blow scared Canaria. The ground began to shake and then a small hole appeared. Will rose from his knees and asked if Canaria remembered what he had just done. He asked the girl to try it now. Canaria wondered if she had succeeded in doing so. Canaria confidently said that she would try to do it. The male adventurers melted and thought that Canaria was so cute. The girl clenched her fist and was in a very good mood. The men became very tense when they saw the girl. The next moment she hit the girl and a pit of Canaria appeared next to Will's pit. The girl shouted that she had succeeded. Will also said that everything was ready. The male adventurers were very surprised and could not believe how Canaria managed to make such a big hole. After some time, Will and Maldina with Canaria buried the bodies, and the rest of the adventurers cleaned up the cave. In the morning, the guys came to the Adventurers Guild. The administrator girl smiled and congratulated Will and his team. They did well this time too, so they should move up a rank. She announces that today is the day Will is promoted to C rank. Will said that they were only promoted to D rank the day before yesterday, so isn't it too fast? The receptionist girl said that everything is fine. The girl said that in the future they will catch more bandits. They expect more from them than just C rank. They will definitely get their points. Suddenly, the man turned to the administrator and said that this is really the same Maldina with B rank. As before, they spend their days investigating the ruins, so they didn't even notice that the elven women were such beauties. Another man said that this was a fan of Canaria, a strong protector filled with the spirit of courage. Suddenly, a scream of girls was heard. One said that she never believed human rumors, but Will was really very nice. At work too, he was unpretentious and so collected, calm and reliable, although young. The other adventurers were surprised and did not understand how these three managed to deal with 30 bandits. There was no way that their rank was C, so they would definitely be at the top soon. Another man got angry and said that he hated this Will. The other agreed and said that Maldina and Canaria were always with Will. They were angry because Maldana spoke to him so nicely that it irritated them. They envied Will and said that they envied him because they wanted Quinaria to call them by name just once. Suddenly, respected people in the city entered the guild and thanked Will for helping them out. Things have gotten tough lately. There are more and more bandits stealing goods from merchants. The head of the city of Sierra said that he was about that urgent task that was put forward at the meeting. He did not think at all that they would carry it out so quickly. On behalf of the people of Farron, he wanted to express his gratitude to the young man. SM also thanked Will because it had affected them too, but more importantly, thanks to them, something that belonged to the young daughter had been found. The girl was surprised and said that SM was talking about that very valuable stolen goods and why he didn't tell her. SM said that it wasn't that valuable. SM was telling the others that his daughter's weapon had been found, so it was valuable. At that moment, Shazar turned to Will and said that there was some noise. He also said that the guys didn't expect such a result. They thought there would be a lot of damage, but they did it in one day, so it's amazing. Will said that it was a good experience for them. Will said that Quinaria had also gained a lot of experience. Quinaria smiled awkwardly, and Shazar thanked Quinaria for her help. Shazar took out a bag of money and said that this was their reward for today. First, what was on the order? 30 gold coins. For finding the robber's lair, 10 gold coins. For the fact that there were more bandits than expected, 15 gold coins. For cleaning up the corpses, 10 gold coins. And 2 gold coins for delivering the stolen goods. Will was surprised that it was all accurate. Suddenly, Hinori turned to Will and asked him to listen. Hinori asked if she could ask him something. Will thought about it and agreed with Hinori, then asked what it was. Hinori asked if the boy had thought about what he would do with the money. Will said he hadn't really. Hinori said that they had worked hard this time and how about some kind of gift. Will asked what kind of gift Hinori was talking about. Will looked at Maldana and Canaria and agreed, and then thought about all the blood that had been spilled this time. It was just awful. He also thought that the reason for this was William's tactics. He thought about 1 or 2 things as a gift. Hinori agreed with the young man and was happy. Maldana and Canaria did not understand what Will was talking about. At this point, the girl with the bunny ears screamed and said that they deserved a present. Then she turned sharply to Will and asked what he thought. Will turned to Maldana and Canaria and asked where the things they were wearing during the mission were. The girl said that she would take care of the things since they were so dirty. Will replied that this was the gift the girl wanted. The girl said that the young man should not worry about clothes because he could provide them with them. As a gift, they meant something new that would emphasize their beauty, in which it would be comfortable to move. Maldana and Quinaria came to Will to call him. Quinaria told Will that they had already received the money and then asked if the boy would pay for it himself. They beamed. Suddenly, Assem interrupted them and said that besides Miss Maldana was Miss Canaria the vanguard. Wouldn't it be better to use the armor? Will said that he thought it would be a good idea to use it. However, now it seems that her body shape is undergoing a major change. The current situation is still too difficult to create a body. Willa interrupted Canaria and said with a serene face that they would stop by the store as soon as the situation stabilized a little. The fox girl interrupted them and said that Miss Canaria needed comfortable, unrestricted clothing so that the uniform would feel free. She asked if that was true. She asked if Miss Maldana had any requests. Maldana said that it would be good to choose clothes in a more mature shade, such as red or blue. Too bright a shade, she thinks, should not be used as it will not suit her. The girl said that she understood. The goods just arrived to her. There are many shades and Maldana looks good in white. It is strong enough, which reduces the likelihood of getting injured by iron weapons. Clothes made from the thread of the spider of rage. Since the material is good, Canaria's clothes will cost 20 gold coins, and Maldana's clothes will cost 18 gold coins. Because of the inconvenience and service provided, so they cannot worry about 20 gold coins. Will said that it was too much for him. The girl was surprised and then asked how about 30 gold coins. The girl suddenly laughed and said that she had been in business for a long time, but this was the first time she had seen such a person. She decided that they would settle on this price. She said goodbye to everyone and said that they were served by the shop Huryu no Tamarigi. They would deliver their order by the end of today. The girl said goodbye to everyone and left. After some time, the guys enter the store. The girl greets them and says that the clothes are ready for them. Everyone was surprised by the speed of making custom clothes. The girl said that this thing is dear to her, so it is difficult to part with it. She turns to Miss Maldana and Miss Canaria and then gives them what they ordered. Maldana was very happy. Maldana was delighted and said that she really liked the outfit, and then she thanked Will. Canaria thanked the girl and said that it was very nice to receive such beautiful clothes. Will replied that he was glad. Maldana and Canaria ran to try on clothes. After a while, they called Will by name. The young man turned towards them. Maldana said that the feel of the fabric was nice too, and then asked Will if the clothes suited her. Canaria added that it was the first time she had worn such cute clothes, and then asked if it looked weird on her. The young man looked at the girls and said that they looked beautiful. It seemed that Maldana's clothes did not restrict her movements, and in terms of material, it seemed that there were no problems with protection. Canaria's clothes can be easily snagged, but if this happens, you just need to go to hand-to-hand combat, so there is no problem. The girls were surprised, and the seller waved her hand and said that the young man expressed himself incorrectly. At this time, Hinori also thought that Will still had no idea what other girls felt. She sighed hopelessly. It's been 2 weeks since the girls got these outfits. Canaria said that it's actually comfortable to wear. She thinks it makes her happier. Maldana added that it was only by putting on a cute outfit that her mood was lifted. Now every day would be like a holiday. Suddenly Will heard something. The girl asked the men to let her go because she was in a hurry. The men told her not to be too angry. Will heard them. The man grinned and said that it was dangerous here, so he offered to walk the girl. The girl screamed that she didn't need it because everything was fine, so the man could let her go. Maldana and Canaria shouted that they absolutely had to help her. Will was serious. Suddenly the girls were surprised by Will's reaction. Maldana shouted and asked where the young man was going. Will turned and asked what he meant by where. If he didn't go to the guild soon, he might be out of a job. He also added that Maldana taught her this. The girl was surprised and asked the young man if he really wanted to leave this girl. The young man said that he had been advised to leave her, but she was apparently an acquaintance of the girl. Maldana said that it was not her at all, although she did not know her at all. Will began to think. Will said that then there was no need to help. Maldana got angry and said that she should stop talking like that. She grabbed the boy and said that they wanted to help and they would do it. Even though they only knew each other for a short time, they had to help her. Mel called Kuna and the girl agreed. The men noticed the girls approaching. One of them said that everything was going according to plan, so he asked Maldana to just not interfere with them. Noticing Kuna, he added that these girls were not bad-looking at all. The men began to smile and ask if the girls wanted to go for a walk with them too. They were happy that now everyone had a partner. Suddenly they noticed Will standing nearby. They were scared and said that it was just a cursed child. Maybe they would kill them. They also said that they would not touch them anymore and would leave quietly. The men quickly ran away. The girls were all surprised. Suddenly the girl asked for forgiveness and said that the first thing she wanted to do was thank them for their help. Maldana said that it wasn't them and they didn't do anything at all. They ran away when they saw the master. They also saw his black eyes and black hair, so the men ran away most likely because of him. Suddenly, a girl appeared right behind Will and said that the princess's clothes were torn and it was that nasty guy, so Will would have to die. She ordered him to die and then swung her sword. Suddenly, the princess stopped the girl and said that Will had defeated the criminal who was trying to kidnap the princess. She asked the night girl to stop attacking Will. The girl turned to Princess Listia and told the girl not to worry. The next moment, she attacked Will, but he successfully dodged her attacks. The girl was on edge. She asked Will to calm down because he was a criminal, so the girl had to kill him. Will thought that the girl did not want to talk to him and he thought that she had misunderstood everything. She was furious, but she could not kill him. He did not understand what was happening. Will said he would kill the girl. The girl was surprised and asked if he really thought he could put her down. He was the only one who had been dodging all this time. She laughed that it was a funny joke. If the boy thought he could do it, he could try. Suddenly the girl didn't feel very well. The girl fell and screamed. She shouted at the boy to kill her. It was better than being humiliated by the knight. Will said he understood and then swung. He struck, but the girl suddenly dodged and the attack landed right on the stone surface, which shattered. Will asked the knight's girl why she had evaded. The girl replied that it was because that was the custom. It was a dangerous situation, and what if he died? Will said that the girl had asked to be killed. If an ordinary night girl asks to kill her, what should be done? Doesn't the boy know what style is, and doesn't he think that means she wants to have fun? Will realizes that he knows nothing. Will wonders who should have children right after meeting someone. Canaria heard the boy's words and said that the master's speech was so familiar. Suddenly the princess began to bow and apologize. She said that she was very sorry that her guards had attacked the young man due to a mistake. The girl knight shouted that princesses weren't supposed to apologize and that this guy was to blame. He shouldn't have even approached them. The princess started shaking and quietly said that this is what happened when the girl knight decided to help her. The next moment, the princess slapped the girl knight and said that she was just an ordinary girl knight. Will said he wasn't going to save the princess girl. The two of them took the initiative. He just decided to play along. The girl knight shouted, "What is this young man talking about? He says that he was not going to help the princess, although you were in such danger." She called the young man names and asked if he really called himself a boy. Will said that she didn't even know what could have happened then. If she was going to help, she would have done it. It didn't matter if it was for work or at someone's request. The girl also shouted that she would not forgive Will for this. The princess asked the knight's girl to be silent for a while. Then she approached Will and asked if the young man would help if it was related to a work task. Will thought about it and said about work. Maldina added and asked how the princess knew Will's name. Quinaria agreed with the girl. The princess said that she should introduce herself first. Her name is Lumiria Humanio. She was allowed to do some research. It was not easy to get any information about William, but it was possible because he is popular. Will said that no matter what the girl did, he would not reproach her. Moreover, she was not particularly interested in it, but if it caused them inconvenience, he would not forgive her. The young man asked her to remember this. The night girl interrupted the conversation and said what was wrong with Will, but he had to watch his words or she would kill them. The princess told Will that she had a favor to ask of him. She asked if the young man could accompany her to the kingdom of Humanian. In addition, he wanted the young man to meet the king of Heldia Humanian since he was her father. Father was very interested in Will. He said he wanted to apologize for the careless remarks of his subordinate Baselard. Will remembered the name. He thought about the way that man looked at Hinori's sister. His only goal is to obtain the spirit of the dead beast. She would like to promise not to interfere in the affairs of the forest, but the likelihood that he will soon break his promise is extremely high. He does not understand what he should do then. Will says that if necessary, she should follow the guild. The princess thought that a person always pays attention to appearance first. Will turns to Maldin and Canaria. He asked if the girls would mind if they first fulfilled the princess's request. Maldina agreed and asked when they could work with the princess again. Quinaria said she was in, too. The princess said that in that case she officially asks them to work for the Adventurers Guild for a while. She would be very glad to have them. After some time, they arrived at the Adventurers Guild. Shazar said that if Will and his friends agreed, they could pass this request on to the Adventurers Guild. However, if they force him to do this, then Varen's upper echelon, or rather Shazar, will become their enemy. He asked the princess to tell Zeldia so. The girl tensed up and said that she would definitely tell the queen this. And of course she promised that she would not treat him badly now. Shazar smiled and said that the girl had made a promise. He asked if this was true. After some time, Canaria, Maldina, and Will say goodbye to the inn owner, as well as his daughter. After a while, the princess said that the fastest way to get there was through the entrance to the city. There was also a post station, but many adventurers and a merchant stopped there, so she wasn't sure if they could rent a room there. Quinaria asked if only Princess Rumiria and her sister Rishia would stay there. Couldn't they do that? The princess said she didn't prefer to use her power for such purposes. Besides, she wants their trip to remain a secret, so she needs to remain unnoticed. The night girl said that although if the princess orders, she will take care of the overnight stay. The princess said that on the way to Varen, someone tried to throw out the overnight guests. She doesn't even know who it could be. The night girl said that she just wanted to ask if she could rest in the princess's room. The princess slapped the girl and said that drawing a sword and holding it to the throat of the interlocutor was called a threat, not a request. She again turned to the swordswoman Risti. Will asked, chewing his food, if they would go on before the sun set. Maldana and Canaria, who were also chewing their food, agreed with the young man. After some time, they found a place for their night's lodging. Everyone thought about it when they saw the smoke. The girl princess thought that there was a fire, maybe there was a thief or something. The girl princess turned around and said that she was ready to fight. The night girl was surprised and asked what was going on there. Maldana answered that there was a fire. Together they headed towards the fire. We'll watch them go, thinking about what he should do when a protected object is in danger. Then he heard some noise and a lot of people running away. The princess was very surprised when she saw a fire-breathing dragon. The night girl said that he was so stupid. This dragon lives in the alpine regions, and how did he end up here? Maldana was surprised that it was such a huge dragon. It might be a species that was born from mutation, but even a normal flying dragon is an A rank. Canaria said that therefore they all had to escape as quickly as possible. The girl said that she would try to attract the dragon's attention to herself, and they should try to take him away at that time. The princess joined Risti so that she wouldn't overdo it. First, they need to save the people around them, then they can fight the dragon. Everyone started to take people away. Quinaria stood right in front of the dragon. She doesn't know how long she can last, but she will use her power to the fullest. Maldana shouted that she would help Canaria. Suddenly Will put his hands out and told everyone to stop. Suddenly he stopped them. The girls were hurt. Canaria cried and said she was hurt. Maldana told Will where he was going and if they were really tired of living. At this point Will went straight. He said he had changed his mind and then tried to calm the dragon down. He said he would not allow any of their people to harm the dragon, so he should calm down. Then Will started petting the dragon and called him a good boy. He asked the dragon to be quiet, and then he saw the arrow and said that was what he thought. He realized that this was the reason, that's why he was so angry. Now he will pull her out. He just needs to be patient for a little while. The dragon tensed, but Will pulled out the arrow. He asked Quinaria to bring water. The girl agreed and then handed the boy a bottle of water. Will treated the dragon's wound and applied leaves. He said that it would make him feel better. Then Will told the dragon to go back to his place and get better. Suddenly, a night girl stopped him and asked the young man what he was doing. First, he heals the dragon that attacked the inn and then tells him to leave here. Will said that he was only furious because the arrow had hit him, but now that he had pulled it out, he was calm again and could be released. The girl asked the boy if he had really gone completely mad. This dragon destroyed everything here. It was lucky that there were no human casualties, so there was no question of letting it go just like that. The dragon suddenly got angry. Will said that the one who hurt him could only be a human. Flying dragons never leave the mountains where their flock lives of their own free will, even when there is no prey left in the area. Besides, what pierced his body was undoubtedly an arrow used by a human. He doesn't know the whole situation, but it's most likely that humans are to blame. The girl asked what of it. She doesn't see anything wrong with attacking a dragon that only brings harm to humans. She asks the boy to look at the people. The dragon was the one who caused the damage. Will asks what is wrong with the dragon fighting for itself. The girl does not think that any of these people attacked him. Will said that the girl herself would be able to distinguish the dragon that attacked the city. If it is not a representative of some special race, it is unlikely to be different from others. The girl asked if Will was really a man who defended monsters. Will told the girl not to misunderstand his position. He was not a supporter of humans, just as he was not a supporter of dragons. He values his family and loved ones. He helped the dragon, healing him a little. He didn't want him to fight Maldana and Canaria because of such a misunderstanding, but if he hadn't listened to him, he would have had to kill him. Suddenly, the princess turned to the night girl and said that the dragon seemed to be not dangerous, and then she asked what was going on here. The girl shouted to the princess to stop these people, especially those who are only capable of harm. The princess ordered Risti to stop, and did the king order it? The girl replied that it was necessary and she would not interfere. Then the princesses said that Risti was right, but she thought that Will was right too. Their values were nothing more than a way of looking at things from a certain perspective. Just as elves adhere to the values of their loved ones, beastmen, in turn, adhere to the views of their beastmen loved ones, and so on. But it is quite obvious, he shares nothing with this vile guy. He does not understand why the decision was made for him to accompany them at all. The girl said that she understood perfectly well that the girl was asking this for her safety and the safety of the kingdom, but this decision would not be disputed. The night girl replied that she understood the girl. She then told Will that she stood up for him, but the dragon was still a threat, so he couldn't be released. So what was the boy going to do with him? Will replied that they could continue their journey with him. All the girls were very surprised. Will said that he really wanted him to go home. However, if the princess allows it, they can go together. He is so big that they will all fit on top, but if he does it again, Will just get rid of him. The dragon began to nod. The princess girl said that the dragon would hardly hear the young man. She could not bring the dragon to the kingdom. Suddenly Will told the dragon to sit, lie down, circle 3 times in the sky and come back, and then break through once. The dragon began to obey Will's commands. The night girl said that the dragon was so terrible. Quinaria was surprised that the dragon obeyed the princess, and Maldina added that Will only surprised her more. The princess told Will that he was so wonderful that he made his head spin. Will smiled and asked the dragon if the princess could train him. The night girl was surprised and asked how Will dared to put the princess in danger. She asked Will what he was doing. Will turned to the dragon and said that the princess would now give him instructions. It was not difficult at all. He just had to follow the commands. He also said that they could begin. The princess asked the dragon to sit down next to her. The dragon did as she was told. The princess came down and then told the dragon to lie down next to her and she would stroke his head. She asked him to continue lying there calmly. Then she stroked the dragon. The girl knight said that her princess had been taken away. She had fallen in love with this monster so much, and that kind smile with which she looks at him all the time, she had never been given during her entire service. After a while they set off. Everyone climbed onto the dragon. Meldina was happy and said that they would finally fly on the dragon. The night girl asked why she was the only one flying tied up. The princess said that she didn't want her to fly on top. The girl asked the night girl to be patient for a little while. She also told Risti that she couldn't help. After a while, Will told the dragon to fly there as he said. They set off. It was a sunny day. The warm light of the sun illuminated the roofs of the buildings. People stood outside the shops to choose the goods they needed. The city was full of life. A heavy sigh was heard from one of the city gate towers. There stood a knight in shining armor looking up at the sky and saying that he was very hungry. He blamed another knight who had asked him to replace him in service. He wanted to do something to that knight when he returned. However, suddenly he saw a flying object in the sky. He was very surprised when this object began to approach him very quickly. The next moment, the knight was shocked by what was happening. The man stuttered, thinking that it was impossible. Suddenly he screamed and started ringing the bell, saying that it was a flying dragon. The other knights heard the bell ringing and drew their swords, ready to fight. Suddenly, the dragon spread its wings and hung in the air. He looked at the knights and growled. One of the men did not understand where the dragon came from. Sweat stains appeared on his face. Another knight supported his colleague and said that they would not be able to defeat him. There were too few of them, so they needed help. The dragon began to roar and spin in the air. Someone said that they did not understand which side would be best for them to approach and land. Mel knew they couldn't go down until they solved the problem. She didn't know what to do, so she turned to the foreman. He didn't see any problems. And he thought that he could just jump from such a height. The girls turned to him in surprise. The princess said that normal people would not survive if they jumped from such a height. She was only mortal, so she would not take unnecessary risks. Mal agreed with the girl's objection, knowing that it was risky, but she thought that Quinaria would probably be fine. Will agreed and decided that Maldina would go with him. The Quinari looked at him in surprise and did not understand where she was going. Will took the princess in his arms and, without giving her time to figure it out, began to prepare for the jump. The girl realized that he wanted to jump and began to ask him to stop, but they were already flying down. She screamed loudly for Will to stop and not do something stupid. The girl started screaming loudly because she was scared. Her face didn't look like a lady's face at all. She started asking Will to let her go, but Will had already landed on the stonework. The knights immediately began to run towards the landed ones, but immediately realized that it was their princess. Will confirmed. Immediately a cry was heard with an appeal to him. Then Kunar and Mel landed well and told William about the successful flight. Mel was disheveled, but with a smile she said that she was almost not afraid. Her whole body proved the opposite. The knights asked for the princess to be returned as quickly as possible. One of them realized that the dragon belonged to the boy, so they had to catch it. Will turned to the princess, saying that they had already landed and that she could get off. The girl asked him to wait a few more minutes, her body still shaking. She wanted to move away a little. Will asked the princess to make the knights leave them alone. The princess gathered herself and climbed down from the boy's arms. The knights began to tell him not to move because he would get hurt, and the warriors also cautiously called the princess to them. Her face changed abruptly and asked them to stop. And she seriously ordered to immediately lower the weapons. The knights were perplexed and did not understand what she was talking about, but they carried out her order. The warriors stood at attention, and the girl immediately smiled, saying that they were not their enemies and that she would explain everything later. The girl asked the knight to send a messenger to the royal castle to tell Merlia and Listiana about the arriving guests. The knights accepted the order and went to carry it out. One of the knights had already run. The princess suggested moving away so that the dragon could land. She had already asked the dragon to land faster. The dragon slowly began to descend to the ground. The knights began to wonder why such a big dragon was following the princess's orders. Some thought it was cool, while others didn't understand how she did it. The girl approached the dragon and praised him, stroking his face, and he growled affectionately. For the knights, this seemed incredible. One of them began to think that the princess had managed to subdue the huge dragon, and that is why he now listens to her and follows where she says. The others picked up his thoughts and began to confirm his words. They began to shout that the princess had subdued the dragon. At this point, the knights' hands shot up and they began to rejoice for the princess, calling her fearless. The girl tied to the dragon turned to her, asking to finally be freed. Then the girl who addressed Merlia appeared. Her name was Lislot, captain of the 3rd Knight Squad, and she was greeted by 200 soldiers. They were glad that the princess had reached them safe and sound. They also asked Her Majesty not to worry because the guests would be accompanied by knights. Merlia was glad to see Liz, who asked not to worry about it because everything was fine. The knight girl stood there a little angry. Liz didn't want to hear that she had screwed up again. Merlia didn't think so and asked her not to worry. She knew that Liz was very worried about her, but it was unnecessary because she was standing in front of her and therefore she could calm down. The captain said that armed force was needed because it never hurts to be on the safe side. But still, the princess first of all bears responsibility if something happens to her subjects. The princess has not forgotten about this. And that's why she chose Liz as her guard. And Merlia warned her that she was leaving, so she asked her not to pretend like she didn't know about it. Liz put her hand over her face and sighed, saying that she didn't think the note on her desk was a warning and that the princess was wrong, but she was glad she was warned about it later. She wanted Merlia to tell His Majesty and the other subjects herself about why she left the castle, and she would deal with Listy herself. The princess agreed. Liz immediately turned to Listy, who shuddered, saying that from this moment he was suspended from work and resigning from his post as a knight, so she should go home and wait for the king's decree. The girl was shocked by the commander's words. She didn't understand why Liz was removing her from her duties, even though she didn't have the opportunity to talk to her superiors right now, but that didn't give her the right to remove her from work, so Listy was still a junior knight. And if she starts to contradict or defend her point of view, then she will put her behind bars and Liz will never see the princess or His Royal Highness again. Therefore, in her place, Listy would keep quiet. The girl was taken by the knights. Liz was pleased to meet Mr. William, Maldina, and Canaria. She apologized for greeting them only now. The girl introduced herself again, reminding them that she was the commander of the 3rd Knight Squad. She was assigned to escort them to the royal palace. Liz started shaking everyone's hands and saying that it was nice to meet them. Maldina introduced herself again, as it was a great honor for her to meet her. Will also introduced himself, as did Quinaria. She was also glad to meet them. Liz smiled and turned to the guests, asking them to follow her. The dragon was guarded by several knights and he was sleeping peacefully on the stonework. There was even food next to him. The city was quiet and calm. The girls were sitting at a round table and eating a wide variety of dishes. William was leaning against the wall and watching the girls. The knight behind the door asked them to follow him. Maldina and Canaria, as well as Will, followed the warrior. After a while, the boys came right up to the entrance to one of the halls. A knight standing next to the door turned to William and said that he hoped the guy wouldn't be too rude. Will ignored him and stood next to the door, looking straight at her. When the boys entered the hall where the king was sitting, they froze for a moment, feeling a little awkward. The king looked up and looked at them with a searching gaze. William was not at all worried. He looked up at the king and without any polite manners asked him if he was the king of the country. The people sitting in the same hall heard this and were very indignant. One of the men angrily asked the boy how he dared to address the king so rudely. The others exclaimed that even if he was an adventurer, that did not give him the right to speak to His Highness like that, and they ordered him to fall to his knees. Liz stood silently behind William, watching his every move closely. Her eyes were full of attention and interest. She wanted to know more about his abilities and talents. The king paid no attention and calmly turned to his comrades and asked them to be calmer. They immediately obeyed their king and calmed down, but were surprised that the king took this calmly. His Majesty and Will met each other's eyes, and in that moment it was as if an incredible connection had taken place between two strong and important personalities. The king told the boy it was funny because he was trying to scare him, but his words were like the wind, they meant nothing to him. He continued to say that if a guy is physically strong, he will always reflexively defend himself with words, and if he is spiritually strong, he will try to hide his physical shortcomings spiritually. At this point, the king reproduced a kind smile. William looked at the king and listened to him without much interest. The king said that he hoped the boy understood everything he was saying. The king continued to say that when he saw a man like William, he doubted his own words that he had said before, and it even became a little sickening. He asked Will not to pretend to please everyone and to behave naturally, since he was not afraid to be impudent in front of him. The boy said without any emotion that his name was William and he had come at the request of the princess. Will thought that no one was listening to him, so he decided to ask impolitely, but the king confirmed without interest that he was listening and asked him to continue. He couldn't remember where he had heard his name before, but he was one of those who didn't listen to others. The king thought for a moment and after a while said that since he was already standing there, he could skip unnecessary details and get straight to the point. Will said he was the scoundrel the whole kingdom was talking about. He wasn't going to suck up and pretend he didn't know or hear anything while he was here. He had come to this country, but he wasn't going to be friendly just because the man was the king. His Highness thought for a moment and said that he spoke beautifully. He was surprised that Will knew what he was thinking and that Baselard had told him his story. He thoughtfully raised his hand to his chin and thought. The man bowed slightly to indicate his presence. Will did not look in his direction, and the king said that he did not know why he was speaking to the boy now, but he had a request to make of him. Will remained silent. The king closed his eyes and began to stroke his beard. He had heard of the adventurer's exploits, so he wanted Will to be under his command. The man laughed because it was too obvious to hear. Will immediately said that he refused, and he refused immediately, which shocked the people standing around the king. The king in turn began to touch his beard thoughtfully and asked to be allowed to finish. He said that he would like him to be under his command, but after Baselard's story, he changed his mind. At this point, the king was serious. The girls were surprised, and the man standing next to the king was serious. Everyone waited for the moment when the king would continue speaking. But His Majesty wanted something else. The man bowed his head and said that he needed Will's cooperation. Everyone in the hall was surprised by the king's actions. The king's servants were outraged and immediately began to try to stop him. After all, where had it ever been seen that a king bowed his head to a commoner? But the head of the country shouted for them all to shut up immediately. All those who remained immediately shut up. Then the king asked them if they hadn't heard Baselard's story about Will. Because of the laws they themselves had created, William had to survive in this world and try to remain human despite the difficulties that came his way. The king knew that if danger arose, Will would help him. After all, the boy admits his mistakes and does not want to seem like a good person by showing his true intentions, and for him, until now, his disappearance remained a mystery. Maldina and Canaria listened attentively to the king, not taking their eyes off him. But now the king spoke sincerely and his motives were pure. He would very much like William to help him, so he would bow his head many times and kneel if necessary. The guy decided to remind that he was a destroyer and wasn't sure that he understood what he was asking for. The king was a little surprised by his revelation, and the girls started apologizing and asking to wait. The Quinari said that he destroyed for the good to save other people. Mal tried to convince the king that he was not such a bad person and asked him to believe it. Will said that he destroyed the illegal goods dealer to save innocent people, but he would do it again if his family and friends were in danger, be it human or monster. Even if the king himself begged for their lives, he would destroy anyone who dared to harm his loved ones. But the king was not going to give up his request and still asked to cooperate with him. He hires Will for work, and the king offers to carry out his orders for a good sum. He asked him to think. The guy made a thoughtful face, and the king continued that they were just working moments for each other. The man turned to Will. He appreciated all his impulses and intentions. The guy was confused by the king's behavior because he thought that he would force him to cooperate, but he gave him the right to choose, which, frankly, surprised him. The king said that he had heard enough about him, so he wanted only one thing now so that they could work together with him. He suggested thinking more because they could not risk the lives of their people just for the sake of profit and their desires. Will thought he understood his feelings and did not have time to finish. The prince appeared in the hall, who asked to wait a little for his father. Everyone turned in his direction in surprise, and Merlia was surprised by the appearance of her brother, who was angry. Will, with a calm face but interestedly, looked towards the approaching guy. The king did not understand what he was doing here because they were in the process of important negotiations. He ordered him to leave. The boy was serious and refused his father. He could not leave his father, who makes bad decisions and does not think about the future of their country. The king didn't understand what he was talking about because, firstly, this man's abilities were not based only on stories from Baselard. The guy assumed he was some kind of bandit, and if it didn't matter to him, he offered to check if Baselard was right to make sure his words were true, and then everything would be clear to them. The prince and Will looked at each other, and there was hostility between them. The king asked to hear him out because William's strength had increased due to the contract with Wilm. This was the cause of everything that was happening. He thought it would be better to just ignore him. The prince said that if it was true, he had to summon a spirit beast. He didn't believe that Will had made a contract with Wilm and asked for proof. The prince thought that the guy was just afraid, and he didn't want to show Hinori in front of everyone. The king's son realized that it was all a lie and adventurers should be honest and brave. He should not abuse his status so much. The boy looked at the prince with disapproval, and then a man's voice was heard, addressing Lloyd. He asked him to stop and calm down. After all, he could get severe punishment for insulting him. Lloyd only said mockingly that he was interested in whether the contract had actually been concluded or not. And was it true what others said, or was it just an illusion and there was no power and it was all a lie? Will stood there with his fists clenched. It was unpleasant for him to hear this addressed to him and to have the finger pointed at him, saying that he was a liar, so he began to make a call. The boy addressed the ancient spirit and asked him to hear and come to him. Lloyd was shocked that the commoner decided to call and began to address Fuchai. The king's servant could not find the right words to describe the situation, and Will, meanwhile, continued to ask him to come and show him. A glowing ball appeared between the boys, and Will didn't understand what it was, and the only thing that was clear was that he was interrupted. The boy began to cover himself with his hand from the light coming from the creature that was never summoned. Eventually, a girl with huge wings appeared from the glowing ball. She arose like a phoenix and was very impressive. Hinori's wings almost touched Lloyd, who in turn fell to the floor. Will was surprised by the entity's appearance and said its name as if not expecting it to appear. Hinori looked irritated, and the guy didn't understand why she showed up. He also asked her to come back, but the girl asked him to shut up and not be afraid. She didn't intend to destroy him, but only decided to raise one little child who doesn't know how to talk to people. Hinori was irritated and angry at Lloyd. He opened his mouth in fear and began to stutter because the girl really did look threatening. Will only said the girl's name, Hinori, with pauses. As it turned out, the girl appeared on her own, and she was scary when she was angry, and William already thought it was completely strange. Lloyd was delighted to finally see the adventurer's spirit beast. It seemed to him like an incredible art created by the gods themselves, and he then decided that she would become his spirit beast. He wanted to know everything about her, save her and make her his spirit, and he was also interested in her powers, so he wanted to test her. Will and Hinori looked at him with suspicion and hostility. He raised his hands and smiled. Hinori flew up and found herself on the young prince's back. He was scared and only said that he actually had royal blood in him. But the creature didn't care at all, which shocked Lloyd. Because he still deserved to be punished because her master shouldn't have such a bad character. although it was understandable because he was from the royal family. Fuchs fell to his knees before Will and addressed him. He asked to be punished instead of lured, and so he asked to calm the wrath of his beast. But since Will hadn't called him, he thought that perhaps she had come because of his anger, and now, no matter what he said, he couldn't stop her. The guy admitted that in fact the contract with Hinori did not mean that he could control her, and besides, he did not care what others thought of him, because Lorst himself said that he wanted to get her. And smiling smugly, he will not try to stop her. The king, who was watching everything, was shocked by Mr. Will's last words and did not know what to do. Hinori, still sitting on her back, thought that the boy had fainted. And she said, turning to the king, that they, the royal family, were those whom her master was trying to befriend. And she was sorry that she had done this, but if they continued to mock her, she would tear them all to shreds. The king was surprised and could not say anything. His Majesty fell to his knees, addressing the spirit beast. He asked for forgiveness for his stupid mistake. He begged for forgiveness on his knees because he did not think that Lloyd would do such a thing. And when he comes to his senses, the king will punish him properly. Hinori said that there was no need to explain, however, he could have simply issued a decree. The girl already wrapped her arms around the boy's neck. Finally, hugging him around the neck, she continued that under such conditions there would be no threat, and she was not going to obey anyone except her master. Hinori asked him to remember her words. The king and the knights bowed before her, understanding everything she said. In his mind, Will did not understand why Hinori forgave this simpleton, and she answered him that the outside world has its own rules. It won't be difficult to destroy it, but if she destroys it, this country will be against them and a war will begin. And even if they win the war, then the country will unite, and then the entire continent. And there will be an endless war with countries, and does William want that? He replied that not really, because he doesn't want to put anyone in danger. Hinori cheerfully advised him to learn more about this world, and then, when his opinion changed, she would do whatever he ordered. Will understood everything and thanked the spirit beast. He realized that there would be no more destructions. And the boy also turned to the king, saying that if Hinori agreed, he would not object. Then if his majesty did not object, it was possible to close this conflict peacefully. The king looked at the boy approvingly. Since this was an offer he himself had been counting on, he thanked him for accepting the offer, and decided to send Lloyd to house arrest, to be educated as the spirit beast had suggested. Next time he wouldn't get off like that. The knights were confused. Hinori flew near Will and smiled, and he looked at her a little surprised. Night fell. An unknown man in a cloak stood near the window and admired the spiritual beast, calling it beautiful. He needed this spirit. After all, they were perfect for each other, as if they were destined by fate. The fighting power of the spirit alone was simply enormous, and if you fought them one-on-one, you definitely wouldn't survive. The stranger smiled terribly, adjusting his cloak. He assured himself that he would find a way to get it. Hinori only had to wait for him, while he opened the shutters and looked at the night sky. There was silence in the house. The doors to the balcony were open. A guy passing by noticed this. He stopped and looked at the man in the cloak who stood in front of him with his back to him. The man looked out the window. The guy pulled out a sword and was literally a centimeter from the unknown man's neck. The guy was serious, but the unknown man began to laugh loudly. As expected, the truly most powerful person in this kingdom, the unknown person, had already been convinced of this more than once. It was Mr. Listiane, who did not understand who was standing in front of him and wanted to know. Listiane didn't understand why he came here. If he had something to say, he had to do it. Otherwise, he would draw his sword across his throat. The stranger spread his hands and said that everything was neglected here and that the gentleman was impatient. But despite this, there was something he wanted to talk to him about. The stranger was glad to see Mr. Listiane. The guy in the cloak introduced himself. His name was Julius, and there was a message for the gentleman from someone. Therefore, Julius asked to remove the sword, but the guy refused. He said that he should say so, otherwise he would destroy him right there. But the man in the cloak asked to keep this in mind. That at the moment he was weak. The kingdom would soon come to an end, and so he asked him to unite with him. Listiane was shocked. He had no intention of uniting with anyone. He didn't understand how he could know what would happen in the future. Julius remembered that they said that a certain guy had acquired the strongest spirit. He had such incredible strength that few could stand against him. The guy didn't understand what it mattered if he had incredible strength. It didn't matter how strong this guy in spirit was, because he heard that this contract could be easily broken. so what did this have to do with their country? Julius confirmed his words, however, not all people recognize him. After all, Listian is now the crown prince. In order to prevent war, he would like to unite with him. The guy was surprised by his words. And Julius promised that if they joined forces, they would come to a common decision. He also felt uneasy being with this man. Moreover, convincing people and turning them against them would not be difficult for him. He thought that Listian didn't understand because they would become stronger and more powerful. They just had to join forces for the sake of the kingdom. Even if they failed, they would still be in the black. Lord Listian was very angry and raised his sword again, but Julius continued that even if the king was against it, it was not a problem. He also asked to follow him. He was far from being a weak person, possessing strong abilities. Lloyd couldn't even get a word in because he was so shocked by what Julius was saying. He said that it would be treason and he couldn't betray his country and his father. The man in the cloak came closer to Listian. Coming very close and smiling, he repeated the words about betrayal. He explained it as not so much a betrayal, but rather a loyalty to the kingdom, because he would save this country with him. Besides, didn't he want to get his father's recognition? Lloyd sighed in fear in his eyes. The guy hesitated and confirmed Julius' words. He realized that he was right. Lloyd was shocked, and Julius continued that with the help of the devil's power, Listian will be able to help His Highness and protect the kingdom. Only he could, so he asked to borrow his power. Lloyd was serious and understood everything, and in the end, he decided to cooperate with him. Julius was pleased with his decision and smiled. Looking out the window, he said that the fun was about to begin, and he promised it. Mel asked Will if he liked it. The boy stood with his hands on his hips and denied because on the contrary it tired him. Canaria asked the gentleman if he would stay here for another week. Then suddenly they were addressed. It was the Knight of Lyserata, and he would accompany them today. Mr. Balud stood before them. Melinda did not understand why they were being given such an honor. The boy thought he was disturbing them, but he came here because he had something to do with Mr. William. They could continue their studies in peace. The knights were fighting among themselves, and Balud stood smiling. Will did not understand what was wrong. They were greeted. And Mel tried to stop the guy. Balud just laughed because there was nothing to be done because he is a Knight of Lyserata. He couldn't talk to them directly now, so the guy suggested moving away from this place a little. The man turned to William and Canaria. He said it was nice to meet them and began to tell them about himself. He worked in this kingdom as a spiritual mage. His name was Balud Havon. They had met him recently, so they were already acquainted. Will remembered the boy and confirmed that they knew each other. William and Quinari sat next to him and listened to him. Quinari was very happy. She said that she would be happy to work with him. Lyserot said that Balud is a spirit mage like Meldina. He has achieved many achievements during the battles with demons. Especially when the orcs were about to make their nest in their territory, Balud was able to destroy them in time. Quinaria, hearing the story of Balud, was very surprised and delighted by his fight against the orcs. Balud looked at her and asked them not to be so surprised because he did not come for stories. The man said he came to talk to Mr. William, a spiritual mage and summoner, because he had a strong spirit. Balud said he was curious about William's contract with the strongest of spirits, asking him to share the story. Balud told the boy not to worry because he had good intentions and was just curious. Suddenly he snapped his fingers and said, "Sandra, come." After that there was a flash. William and Canaria looked towards Balud and were very surprised. The man said that Sandra was his spirit. There was a bright flash, and the guy said that she was his spirit. Balud reported that Sandra was not a higher spirit and asked her to say hello to William and Canaria. The boys looked at the spirit with admiration. The boys continued to look at Sandra with admiration. Suddenly William noticed that she was looking straight at him. Lyserot began to explain that Sandra was a contract spirit of Balud. As expected, she did not impress them much. Canaria thanked them for their cooperation. All this time, William and Sandra looked at each other mysteriously. There was an awkward feeling between them. The guy thought about the fact that this spirit had a very strange reaction to people. He thought that Sandra was afraid of them because she bowed her head and looked at the floor. Suddenly, Balud jumped up from his seat, apologized to William, and said that Sandra was very shy. William was surprised by this. Suddenly the boys heard something behind them and, scared, turned around to look. Balud said that everything was fine and the boys could rest easy. After all, it was only between them, and turning to Liesrot, he said that it would soon pass. The girl denied it and turned to Mr. William and Mrs. Cunneray. It turned out that there was a big and bright flash. Everyone was very scared and did not know what had happened. William apologized and said he needed to step away for a while. He needed to see Maldina. Her safety was the most important thing. Liz was a little embarrassed and agreed. Bailoud looked at William suspiciously and thought about something. The guy looked back at him in the same way. Liesrot said that everything was fine, but then William turned to her. She looked inquiringly in his direction. The guy asked her to be careful and said that as soon as they found Maldina, they would come back. The girl smiled at him and thanked him. William had already set off and invited Canaria to follow him. The girl immediately began to catch up with him. William was very thoughtful and Quinaria noticed it. She thought he was strange. The guy was sewing and thinking that the sound was loud, and it seemed like they were going in the right direction. But suddenly he realized that he felt no one there. The boys approached the massive door, and William began to open it. Opening it, a blinding light fell on them from the room. The guy did not expect such a bright light. The first thing the guys saw was Maldina, who was doing something very diligently. As it turned out, she was trying to break through a huge crystal. Also in the room was Mizorio, who was helping Maldina. She looked towards the boys and told them not to come closer. Canaria was very scared when she saw everything that was happening. She hid behind William, who offered to help Maldina. Mizorio told Maldina that her magic power was normal, but it was not enough. Her concentration and speed were dropping. William, who was standing next to her, did not listen to Mio's words and said that he understood everything. The guy came closer to Maldina and told her to rest and began to help her break the crystal. It wasn't difficult for the guy at all, and it didn't take much effort from him. Only when I put my hand to the crystal did it begin to crack. The guy thought about how he needed just a little more time and that Maldina had punched him pretty well. As expected, she was pretty tough. William had only a little time left to break through the crystal. It started to crack even more, and finally the guy broke through it with his magical power. The crystal burst so suddenly that Maldina was knocked off her feet, but Canaria managed to catch her. The girls were very scared. The girls looked at each other and Canaria asked if Maldina was okay. Mal smiled at her and said that she was okay. Maldina reported that she had spent almost all her magical power on this, thanking Canaria and William for their help. Maldina also thanked Mizorio for helping her. The girls smiled as they were happy to help. William turned to the girls and said that they needed to restore their magical powers, and then asked Canaria to stand guard. The girl understood everything. Quinaria stood guard just outside the door. William was helping Maldina restore her magical powers. William turned to Maldina and said that he would now restore her magic. He would try to help her and then asked her to relax. The girl did everything that the guy told her, but she did not quite understand what was happening. The crystal split into 3 parts. There was a large piece in the center. Liz stood in shock because she saw something there that she did not want to see. In the large piece of crystal was a princess. Her face was sleeping. William asked Maldina and Mizorio not to remain silent and said that if she knew anything, it would be better to share it with him. The girl was very scared. She said that, to tell the truth, she understood very little. But Maldina started telling about how she was going to Heisher and distinctly heard the sound of an explosion. And when she went to see what happened, this black crystal caught her leg. William listened attentively to the girl, and she continued to tell that she thought at that moment that if she used magic, the power of the crystal would noticeably decrease. But at that very moment, he came with his friends. William suddenly wondered if he had done the right thing by letting Lislot go, but soon calmed down and thought that it was only between kings. The boy turned to Maldina and Mizorio. William told the girl to go to Heisher and also said that he did not think that the crystal's effect could reach the center. But the sealing technique was indeed very powerful, so he wanted her to travel around the kingdom and supervise suspicious people. The guy continued to tell that if it happens that Heisher is trapped in a black crystal, then you need to stay away from the kingdom, otherwise Maldina will also be in danger. The girl understood everything, and Mio said that this is very bad. William turned around abruptly and looked at Canaria. The girl was afraid of this. The boy told her to come with him. Canaria was very happy. She agreed and said that she would cover William's back. The boys went their separate ways. Liesrot turned to Mr. Moyd and Rumelia. The crystals were still hanging in the air. Liz remembered the words she had told Will to be careful. She was very excited. Liz jumped away from the blow. And Baled pointed at the girl and turned to Lizarot, happily reporting that she had managed to dodge. He expected that from the Grandmaster's knight. The girl was scared. She didn't understand what had happened and asked Baled why he was doing this all of a sudden. The guy asked her if she was really that stupid that she didn't understand. After all, she had to train not only physically, but also mentally. Lizarot looked at Baled with fear. He said that she knew that not only the vassals of the Confidants were captured, but also the members of the royal family. The guy said that the only ones left in the castle were them and her friends, and he considered them vile. Baled said that his original plan was to lure Lizarot and her friends there and destroy them one by one, but his plan went wrong. The girl did not expect this. She was very surprised and scared. Lizarot could not believe that Baled could do such a thing. The girl got angry with him and thought that he didn't understand what he was doing and had no idea at all. Baled was calm and laughed and said that of course he understood everything. The guy told the girl to continue believing her stupid friends. The country would be destroyed sooner or later anyway, and it was only a matter of time. Although he thought that this would happen in the near future. And even their beautiful beast with powerful strength will only waste time and will not be able to help. It was time to get rid of all the unnecessary stuff. After all, this country deserved only him. Liz said he was crazy. But Baled continued that he had been there that day and had made a contract and had become the owner of the beast spirit. No matter what he did, the beast spirit would never be able to choose him. He said it mockingly, wanting Liz to understand that he could have it. The girl didn't understand what he was saying. He thought that she thought that he had done nothing because he had a pre-planned plan, so now, more than ever, he was confident that he could obtain the spirit of the divine beast, make a contract with it and subjugate it. Liz didn't understand what he was doing and picked up the sword, swinging it at him. Baled just said that he had a great plan, and he would destroy her before that nasty guy came to them. He snapped his fingers and tried to call Julius. He entrusted this matter to him and hoped that he could cope without him. Julius immediately appeared behind Liz and decided to obey. The girl turned around in fear. The Quinari realized that Baled was a traitor and Will confirmed this as well, because now there was no doubt. Despite the fact that an explosion had occurred, there was no noise outside the castle. In addition, the castle was suspiciously quiet, as if someone had created a special illusion. The sound of the explosion came from the king's room. Will thought they were going in the right direction, but it was still quite difficult to pinpoint the exact location based on the noise alone. William was silent and serious. Sandra seemed afraid of people, especially those close to Baled. If he was really in danger, then the girl needed to be rescued immediately. The Quinari asked again and realized that this was very strange. But she began to tremble with fear. Will noticed this and wanted to warn the girl. He didn't think that Baled would be able to use the seal magic alone, because it couldn't be easily destroyed by Melodina and Miserio's magic, even though Sandra had a superior spirit. He was sure that he wouldn't be alone, so they had to be extremely careful. The girl was scared. She started turning her head and agreed, which surprised Will. There was someone standing in front of them. It was Liszt who decided to save the princess and destroy this dead man. The Quinari was frightened by the master's appearance and did not like her look because it was somehow abnormal. Will thought that it was brainwashing or hypnosis. And anyway, he didn't have time for other people, so he had to end this as soon as possible. He punched Listjan in the stomach. She began to writhe in pain and cough. Will was surprised. And the girl started screaming that he was a pest and a spider that should be crushed with fists and destroyed. Will realized that because of the hypnosis and the memory block, she couldn't control her thoughts. He had no idea who could have done this, but it would take him a little time to remove the block. Listiana said to protect the princess and save her. The Quinari called the master again and asked him to give it to her and for him to move on. The Quinari stood in front of Listiana. Will wasn't sure she could handle it on her own, but she said that everything was fine. Now she was definitely ready and would not lose to Listi. The Quinari entered into battle with her, and Will decided to leave it to her. The girl militantly agreed. The boy walked on and thought happily that Cunaria had grown so much. He wondered if his sister had felt the same as he had when he was growing up. Listi screamed at his back that he had run away like a coward and called him names. The Quinari and Listiana entered the fray. She wasn't going to let her go, but Listi screamed that she wouldn't stand in her way. The Quinari swung her axe. Liz was completely exhausted after the battle but tried to hide her fatigue, and Julius was completely unperturbed. He tried to find out if Liz was already thinking about stopping and surrendering. Then he said that he would take this sword for himself. Everything around was quiet and gloomy. Julius said that Liz's strength was already running out and her body was paralyzed with pain, and then asked if she really still thought she could defeat him. Liz quietly said that she needed to hold out a little longer and stall for time. She needed to figure out the next steps that could help her achieve her goals. Baled, who was running towards Liz, asked Yuli why he was stalling since the girl was already barely breathing and it was time to finish with her. Julius listened to Baled and said about the task he had undertaken. He swung his sword at the girl and was ready to finish her off. Deep down, Liz was very scared, but she didn't show it. The girl just quietly told him to come to her and said that she needed just a little more time. Suddenly, someone's hand grabbed the blade of the sword. It turned out to be Wilm, who asked if he had arrived on time. The girl turned towards the guy and couldn't believe her eyes. She was very happy to see her friend. Wilm said that Liz had done a great job and now she should leave everything to him. The girl breathed a sigh of relief and thanked him. Liz was so exhausted from the fight that she fell unconscious. Baled turned to Wilm and said that he was a little late and he did not like to wait. Baled stood behind Julius and continued to reason, because what else did he expect from such a mediocrity as Wilm? Therefore, he cannot bother to answer. Wilm suddenly thought he noticed that when he entered, Julius stopped attacking and hid his sword. He has a fairly quick reaction. He wondered if he would have time to disarm him. Unexpectedly, Julius began to laugh loudly. The guy told Wilm that he had finally come, otherwise he had been waiting for him for a long time. Wilm didn't understand what was happening and thought that they had met somewhere before. Suddenly, Baled exclaimed that it was time to stop talking and ordered Julius to destroy Wilm. Wilm looked menacingly at Julius. Julius said that it was nice talking to him, but he was guilty. Yuli also added that at least this is what his customer claims and assumed a fighting pose. Wilm also assumed a fighting stance and immediately attacked his opponent, which he did not expect. There was a battle between Julius and Will. They fought with their fists. The guy dodged the blow in time and immediately looked straight at the man in the hood. Will struck, which surprised Julius. Wilm was thinking about this man and was angry. Julius noticed that Wilm was dodging all his blows. He thought that Wilm might attack because he was quite strong. Suddenly, someone called out to Wilm. Wilm suddenly looked back and noticed Hinori in front of him, which gave him a pleasant feeling. Hinori ran towards Wilm and said that they couldn't delay any longer because it was unknown how the black crystal would behave after such a long time. She couldn't let him and the people locked in the stone escape. Wilm suddenly attacked Julius. The guy did not expect it. His attack was so strong that he flew back several meters. Julius was confused. He didn't know what to do. Hinori told Wilm that if he had trouble coping alone, he could just rely on her. She asked the boy if they should help Sandra. Wilm confirmed this and told Hinori to help him and lend him her power. Wilm asked Hinori to help his soul, to avenge him and the people imprisoned in stone, and to grind his ill-wishers into dust. The boy shouted loudly for the Red Hawk Princess Blaze Fernal to appear. Suddenly there was a bright flash, and Hinori began to appear. As soon as Hinori appeared in front of them, their hearts sank in amazement. She was like an angel, framed in a light that made Julius and Baled hardly believe their luck. But suddenly Baled ordered Julius to get rid of the girl. The guy immediately understood what his task was. He said that there was a spiritual connection and began to use magic. Hinori was shocked, as was Will, who was standing behind her. Julius held his hand outstretched and hurt Hinori. She started screaming. This shocked Will. The spirit soared upward and her owner did not know how to help her. Two girls stood opposite each other. The princess extended her small hand to Listia. She was very happy. A fight was taking place in the Great Hall. The Quinari was swinging her axe and Listia was very angry and wanted her to leave there. But the girl never intended to leave and she told the girl about it. She immediately swung her axe. Listia exhaled and repeated again that she should leave quickly, because it was dangerous here and she didn't understand at all what this simpleton was doing. The Quinari said that the master had saved Lady Rumelia and she did not want Listia to insult him. The girl said that he was a curse that brought misfortune. She did not understand why Kuna did not understand. The girl spoke again about the master because he helped her and Mel when they were going to be sold as servants. In addition, he helped her heal from the pain that she received even with the slightest exertion. She thought that maybe he was a little rough, but he was not dangerous at all. Listy was very angry and she was irritated that she trusted him. After all, she was here to save the princess and protect her. She screamed that she had to do it. Memories flashed through Listiana's mind. They included Will standing next to the joyful princess. Leafy was unhappy with their friendship and had a sense of ownership because she was her princess and she had to protect her. The Quinari swung her axe, trying to defend herself. Listy was tired, beads of sweat were dripping from her face. She held her sword in her hand, pointing it at the Quinari. The girl was shocked. The knight's sword fell with a clanking sound. Listiana began to cry because her princess, she should be with her. A smiling face of the princess appeared before her, holding out her hand to Leaf. The knight's face turned red and she reciprocated the outstretched hand. The Quinari realized that the matter was not in Rumelia. She thought that she needed Rumelia more than anyone else. The girl asked again in surprise. The Quinari began to explain that she had only known her for a couple of days but did not understand what she had done for the princess. After all, everything she did was purely for selfish purposes. Listja, kneeling in front of the girl, screamed that it was not true because she did everything for the princess. Quinaria was irritated and did not believe her. Because it was easier to say what she did for the princess than to confess, any wrongdoing could be justified with this expression. Listja did not think so. Quinari didn't think she was sure of that. Despite being an escort, she always stood away from her. She even mistakenly hit the master who saved Lady Rumelia and didn't pay attention to her words. And then she made him bend down. Listja began to ask her to be quiet. But Quinaria was not going to remain silent because even after arriving in the kingdom, when she was taken with them, all the work remained with Rumelia. She said that she was protecting and saving her, but in reality, she was doing all this for her, not for Listy. The girl in hysterics began to scream for her to shut up and tried to attack the girl. Because Kuna did not even know anything about Rumelia, the girl wanted to serve her since childhood. She wanted to always be by her side, take care of her, protect her from danger. She had to do all this. The girl remembered the princess's smile, her trust in her. She thought that all this should be hers. Quinaria screamed, hanging from her arms, that she was being selfish. She was just spoiled by the princess girl, and only because she is on her side, so take care of her. Kuna thought that was why she said that. If she wants a reward for this, and if her feelings for her are so strong, then she should stop being an escort. Kuna hit Listy in the stomach, sending her flying far away. Memories of the first day of their meeting flashed through the girl's head. Rumelia said that Listianel would be her escort from that day on, and asked to take care of her. The princess thought that calling her by her full name would be too long and suggested an alternative, to simply call her Listy. The girl smiled and Listy was embarrassed but agreed. Listiana wondered where she had gone wrong. She again remembered the princess, who was happy and said that she was going to the city while offering to go with her. Listy stood and smiled. The girl repeated again that she simply served the princess so that she could always see her smile. Rumelia said that nothing could be done. One day, Listy accidentally made a mistake, and even though she forgave her, it still happened. The princess was worried when she saw the many scratches on Leaf and said that learning was important, but everything should be in moderation. Listiana thought that her scratches weren't that big, but she was treating injuries that no one cared about. The smiling face of the princess haunted Listy's thoughts. She always said that she was doing everything for the princess. She didn't understand how she realized all this, when in fact she was defending her own ideals. The last words before switching off were about Rumelia. She hoped to meet her again. There was a tense silence in the air, and suddenly William shouted Hinori's name in amazement, his voice sounding excited. It turned out that the enemy had managed to grab the girl, Hinori, who was desperately climbing and fighting for her freedom. William was overcome by an indescribable feeling of surprise and helplessness. He did not understand how it was possible that the enemy could catch Hinori so easily. William looked at Julius and did not understand who he was. William thought about saving Hinori first, because if it was a restraining magic, it would use up a huge amount of magic. The guy immediately ran towards the girl. Running up to Hinori, William saw Julius using spiritual connection magic. The boy watched what was happening, uncomprehending. Julius said that the restraining magic is designed against spirits, and by the way, it is his innate magic. If the spirit is too strong, you can lose consciousness and fall to the floor. But as he thought, Hinori has a beast spirit. Hearing all this, William became very angry and was afraid for Hinori. He did not know how he could defeat his opponent now. William suddenly attacked Julius and shouted something that irritated him. The guy easily began to repel all of Will's attacks. Julius apologized to William and said that this was his employer's wish, he could not let him go. William did not stop and continued to attack his opponent. Julius said that until his employer achieved his goal, they would have some fun. William shouted at Julius not to be a fool. Julius himself was already quite out of breath from this battle. Balad said that Hinori really couldn't move. Balad shared that when Julius told him everything, he was skeptical, but now he can seize the moment. Hinori was very scared and Balad laughed loudly. He moved very close to the girl and asked her if it was true that she could not move, and her summoner could not approach. Why should she not give in and belong to him? Balad asked. Hinori was very angry with the guy's words and actions. She said that he was simply out of his mind, her only summoner was William. Balad asked the girl if she had refused him, but he still wanted to get her, no matter what the method. The guy suddenly took out a ring, showed it to Hinori and told her to look at it. When she saw the ring, the girl was very surprised, she couldn't believe her eyes. The guy told the girl that he guessed that the girl knew what it was. As the girl thought, it was a legacy of the ancient era of the civilization of magicians, the ring that binds spirits. As the name suggests, this ring makes spiritual beings, a magical tool that makes people obey. Although the substances it contains and the methods of production are still unknown to the world, the effect exceeds expectations. Even the great spirit Sandra is powerless against this tool. Hinori listened attentively to Balad. She was very scared and did not know what to do. The guy said that he would tie her up with this if they signed the contract. Balad came very close to Hinori and said that she was now his thing. At this time, Julius and William continued to fight. The enemy asked if Will was tired yet. Julius noted that William was in no hurry, and his spirit would soon be stolen. William was already very tired. He thought that there was nothing he could do now. Balad approached Hinori and held out the ring, then telling her to become his. Hinori was very indignant and scared. She did not understand what was happening to the guy. She said that she was not going to submit to anyone but William, and if she had to, she would resist until this magical instrument broke. The girl suddenly heard William's voice in her head. William asked her if she could hear him. Hinori was very tired. She was glad that the guy contacted her. The girl answered that she heard him. William said they were in a slightly dangerous situation. Hinori said she didn't think she could get close to him. The girl was very tired. William said that in any case she should listen to him. The boy said that it was not the time to think about strategy. In parallel with this conversation, William managed to continue fighting. He asked Hinori to do this. The girl asked him if he really thought it would help and suggested that perhaps he felt awkward. Julius suddenly noticed that something was wrong with William. The opponent noticed that the guy was very calm but still did not want to give up. He felt that it would be a lot of fun. Unexpectedly, William bounced off Julius. The guy was very tired after the battle but was ready to continue. Julius looked at William in bewilderment. William began to cast a spell. He addressed the Lord of the Flaming Scarlet Sky. Balad noticed this. He asked if the boy was going to summon another spirit. Then he said that he was very sorry that William still did not think to give up. William continued to chant, promising that he would search and find the soul that inhabited his body. Julius watched the boy with anticipation. Balad turned to Julius and told him not to worry because he would also bind another spirit. The girl suddenly began to emit bright rays of light and fly up. Balad, who was standing next to her, was very surprised. Balad suddenly became scared. He didn't know what was happening and what to do. The guy stood and watched the girl's actions. Hinori began to fly quickly towards William. Balad was surprised and scared. Julius watched with admiration. The girl flew so fast that it looked like a whirlwind. She touched William and they began to unite. William and Hinori appeared before their opponents in their new form. Hinori and William merged into one spirit. Julius stood amazed. He clearly liked what happened. The guy even opened his mouth in amazement. He was amazed and realized that he had an ace up his sleeve, something he certainly didn't expect. Balad was furious. He didn't believe what was happening. He didn't understand how he had merged with the spirit. It seemed to him that it was simply unthinkable because just a little more and she would have been his. Will was furious because he dared to treat Hinori like an object. He thought Balad was laughing and hoped he was ready to take responsibility. The guy didn't understand what was wrong with Will. He also didn't understand how he did it if he merged with the spirit of the beast. But the United had a spiritual connection. Julius tried to attack. But Will said that his actions were useless, and even though they merged, he was the basis and his magic would not work here. Julius wanted to give up. Belaud told Sandra to come out, but he realized he couldn't even use her. The guy was very irritated by this, but he asked Sandra to stop Will at the cost of her life. He asked her not to worry. If he could escape, he would stop the experiment for a while, and he also asked her to buy him time. The girl was shaking but agreed. Meanwhile, Belaud was already running to the door. The guy turned around with a sly smile. Everything suited him. He wanted her to attract his attention. Belaud grabbed the door handle, but it began to hiss. The merged spirit and Will were distracted, but then a scream was heard. William approached the screaming Belaud, who apparently hoped that he would be let go so easily. The guy threw his head back and shouted at Julia and Sandra to help him and not stand there like a pillar. Julius held Sandra in his arms and was pleased, saying that he was terminating the contract. Belaud could not understand why he was terminating the contract. Julius turned to Belaud, saying that since the contract was terminated, he would take Sandra for himself. At that moment, an angry Belaud shouted at Julius that he had not agreed to this. After all, he had promised to give her only after he received the spirit of the beast. Belaud continued that he couldn't terminate their contract without his consent. Julius, smiling, said that he actually could. After all, if one of the parties wants to terminate the contract, then you just need to use a little more force than when signing it. That was all. In fact, he is no longer connected to Sandra. Belaud shouted at Julius and realized that he wanted to betray him, and he answered, raising an eyebrow, that there was no one to betray. After all, he had spent so much time and he had ruined everything. He takes Sandra as compensation. Besides, Julius thought that he had forgotten how he had tried to betray him and had started to run away. Will scornfully wanted to make sure they were done. He grabbed Belaud by the head. He started screaming and begging him to stop, but Will said he would burn him to ashes, like he did with Sandra. Will couldn't allow his friends to be touched, and even more so to hurt his little sister Hinari. Regretting everything he had done, he would disappear. William continued to hold Belaud by the head and he asked him to stop, but the guy was serious and determined to keep his words. Ultimately, the impudent traitor was destroyed. Will extended his hand and addressed Julius, saying that he did not know what their contract was or what it included. But he wanted the hooded guy to let the kid go because she needed to be free. Julius denied it, saying that she was the target of his contract. He had had enough fun with him and decided to end the conversation. But Julius said that in that case he called upon a fiery feather. Julius screamed. And he turned to Will, thinking that he did not understand what could happen to Sandra, but he was told not to worry. The flame obeyed him and burned only what he ordered. William told Julius that he had better worry about himself than about others. Julius jumped back but lost his footing. Julius tried to balance himself so as not to fall, and William watched. It was only a little bit left for Julius to start falling backwards, and at that moment William attacked him. Julius struggled not to fall, and William continued to attack him. Julius asked the guy to stop. Suddenly a girl appeared. She said that it was enough to touch Yuli. The girl covered the guy with her body, protecting him. William was confused. He didn't know who it was and what to do now. After thinking about it, William realized that this girl was a spirit. The girl approached Julius and looked at him excitedly. Julius was glad to see this girl and was happy that she returned. The girl's name was Emmy. Julius said that she was his salvation and she came just in time. The girl was very happy about this. Julius thanked Emmy and said that now they had a new friend and offered to take Sandra away from there. The girl agreed. Emmy looked at William and said that since Sandra was their new friend, she would try her best. Emmy cast a mind-blinding spell. William immediately realized that his opponents were escaping. A moment later, Julius and the girls were able to leave the room. Yuli and Yim climbed out through the window. When he came down, Yuli immediately looked back to make sure they were not being followed. But instead he saw a huge dragon flying straight towards him. The guy was very scared. But then the guy noticed Mel sitting right on the dragon's neck. He couldn't believe his eyes and asked if this was really William's girlfriend. He suggested that Emmy take advantage of the moment. Emmy immediately understood Julia and began to use magic. William suddenly appeared and noticed this. From the window, William shouted to Mel, who was flying on the dragon, to take everyone away from there right now. The girl said that this voice was familiar to her. Could it really be William? Her friend said that she even thought it was Hinori. Could something really have happened to William? Emme flew towards Mel and continued to use her magic power. Hazura was very scared. She did not know where to go. William, who was watching this from the window, noticed this and quickly moved to the dragon Mel to repel Emme's attack. The guy used dispersal magic and was able to successfully repel all attacks. After that, he began to use powerful explosion magic to completely protect his friends from the attack. After the actions were carried out, the guy landed on the ground. Will felt no magical power and thought they had escaped. But they walked through the forest and little Emmy followed Julius and the girl turned to him. Emmy said that Bela destroyed Nye and me. Julius understood everything and was a little upset. He apologized for having to resort to their help to save themselves. Spirit said that they did not mind. Julius smiled and thanked Emmy, and Sandra almost came to her senses in his arms. The guy didn't understand what happened and why the girl was looking at him like that, and she replied that Yuri looked happy, which surprised the guy a little. He laughed and tried to figure out how she figured that out. He also said that Will was more interesting than he thought. He tried to remember if he had mentioned Will had merged with a spirit. The guy had thought him interesting and he would never have thought that was possible. Sandra, in Yuli's arms, half asleep, called Emmy. He suggested that she try the same thing when they returned. The spirit became embarrassed and said that she wanted to try to merge. Sandra said that Yuri was behaving indecently, and he, with a smile on his face, did not understand what she was imagining. The hood began to fall from Yuli's head. As it turned out, long black hair was hidden under the hood. Julius said that he was a little tired. He hoped that he and Will would meet again and smiled a little maliciously. Will, who was still connected to Hinari, was a little angry at such a statement. Will thanked her for the invitation. He smiled because he was glad. He was grateful to Her Highness for the honor of being here and for her extraordinary kindness. Canaria and Maldina were very shocked. Will asked her to tell him where they were going. Mal replied that she was still in shock that the princess had invited him to the kingdom and asked him to accompany him to her. She was also curious as to why she had called him and how he was connected to the coup d'etat, since he knew that she still hadn't forgiven him for trying to rob poor Hinori. Will confirmed that he had acted like an amateur back then and still had a lot to learn, but to be honest, Hinori's sister really did look quite attractive, and he never regretted what he had done. He thought it was very reckless. Rumelia said that after saving the kingdom from the impending danger, they seemed to lack strength and power. The boys turned around and saw Princess Rumelia. Will said that he was incredibly grateful for the honor. The princess started waving her hands and saying that there was no need for thanks. After all, she didn't even understand what these formalities were for when she could have felt at home. Will was embarrassed and agreed and then decided to get straight to the point. He also didn't understand why she had called him. Rumelia said she had a serious conversation with him, but first they had to go to her room since the corridor had ears and the conversation was too personal. Will stood with an incomprehensible expression on his face. There were conversations behind the massive doors. Rumelia decided to say one thing first. She wanted to thank him and apologize because he saved her country, and she was finally able to notice Barry's evil speculations and take action. Will said that he should have thanked and apologized Princess. He wanted to know why she had called him. Rumelia said that she wanted to talk about Listy. Quinaria, who was standing behind Will, remembered everything that had happened. Kuna began to apologize and the princess said that he could be trusted because Listy had made a terrible mistake. He was always honest with her and would never go against her. She felt like he was brainwashed, so he went against their state. But he was in danger and she couldn't do anything about it, but she wanted to protect him from a terrible fate. The princess was upset and asked to help him regain his sanity and save Listy because the kingdom would not spare him, and he must know how to cure him. She asked for help again. Will was surprised and the princess continued because she did not know how to save Listjan. The girl disappointedly denied. But Will, however, said that if he was still in a reckless state, then there was a chance that he had indeed been put into deep hypnosis. The girl was already outraged. She asked for an explanation. Will began to explain that usually the brainwashing technique involves strong hypnosis, which blocks the consciousness as well as physical activity. However, the brain continues to function, although it is subjected to a lot of stress. Mel exclaimed in surprise. She realized it too. And it turned out that she was right and Listy really was in captivity, where he was constantly being thoroughly brainwashed. The princess kept thinking and did not understand why Listy's manner of speech had become so strange and unusual. He had never spoken like that before. Will couldn't promise, but he would try to unlock his memory. He also thought that there was a chance that he could get out of hypnosis and return to normal life. Rumelia repeated his last words. And she jumped joyfully, thanking him. She believed that he would be able to save him. The girl remembered that they had not yet decided where they were going to spend the night. She would be very glad if they could stay in the kingdom. Will agreed and thanked, but in reality he dreamed of returning to the village as soon as possible. He sat on a chair remembering his village and smiled. In the city, people were walking around the local market, looking at various goods and enjoying the merry life. William turned to the princess and thanked her for taking care of him. The princess replied that there was no need to thank her, it was her wish. Commander Lyserata and the army had been protecting her all this time, and she did not know it. The princess admitted that she hadn't even tried to find out. Besides, if the guy saved the kingdom, she was grateful to him and also to Leafy. William said that they had no specific plan. Now they were planning to return to Farron. He would ask Heiser to help them if something happened. The guy said to take the dragon for himself. The princess agreed to take the dragon for herself. But she said that if he attacks Sweet Kaisera, she will not forgive him. The girl had tears in her eyes when she thought of Heiser. William was at a loss. He did not know how to calm her down. Lizarat turned to William and thanked him for saving her life. She promised that she would train to avoid such a situation again. She hoped that she could practice with William next time. The guy didn't mind at all. William told Lyserot that she couldn't do much to break the habit this time. He advised her to thoroughly review the basics and create a fighting style that suited her. Will said that when he came again, she would be able to compete with Canaria. The girl happily confirmed, turning to Lyserata and thanking them very much. The princess and the knight waved to their new friends. Will told Maldina and Quinaria that they were leaving. The girl on the dragon's back waved back and thanked them even more. Mel picked up and thanked Rumelia and Lyserot for their help. The princess shouted loudly that they would meet again and that they should wait for them. Everyone sitting on the dragon, namely Will, Canaria, and Mel, smiled at them. The guy also said that they would meet again. The dragon began to take off with a loud roar, and Rumelia was still waving goodbye to them. Meanwhile, in the village, the streets were empty. The boy standing with the spear defeated the knight who was much older than him. The knight was upset that he lost. The boy, in turn, still said that he was quite strong, as he expected. As they said about his uncle, he was a capable man and the best in the city. People were talking. The boy turned towards the building with large arches and exhaled, putting his hands on his hips. He realized that there was no sense in these rumors, and he was more interested in finding someone stronger. With such a dissatisfied face, he threw his hands behind his head. Then someone started spreading a rumor about the Humanian kingdom. Someone confirmed that they had heard about it, and they seemed to be talking about a coup d'etat. The first man confirmed and continued that they had suppressed the rebellion. They even officially announced that it was 3 adventurers. Someone from the crowd was very surprised and did not believe that such a thing could happen. Someone thought they were lying, but such a lie would be a disgrace to the country. Someone was surprised that it was all true. Meanwhile, the boy listened attentively to their conversation. Surprise appeared on his face. When he heard from someone that one of them was an outcast and the most outstanding member of the team, the boy immediately turned to them and addressed. People immediately understood that the boy was also an outcast. Someone had heard again that such people disappear in infancy, and that meant he was strong. He asked to be told more. The boy was obviously very interested.